Call the meeting to order and welcome everyone to the Kalispell June 17, 2024 council meeting. Can I have a roll call, please?
Councillor Dowd.
Here.
Councillor Dahlman.
Here.
Councillor Fisher.
Here.
Councillor Hunter.
Here.
Councillor Nunnally.
Here.
Councillor Carlson.
Here.
Councillor Gabrielle.
Here.
Councillor Graham.
Here.
Mayor Johnson.
Here. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Agenda in front of us. Look to council for approval. Mr. Nunnally.
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Second. Thank you, Ms. Carlson. All in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. I think that was a 4 vote, right, Carrie?
Yes.
Okay. 2 items on the consent agenda this evening. The first are the council minutes from the May 13, 2024 meeting. And the second item is approved change order for Grandview Lift Station and 4 Mile Drive Force Main Project. This item approves a change order for Schedule 2 of this project, around $300,378. Is there any public comment on either of the 2 items on the consent agenda? Then look to council for a motion. Mr. Nunnally.
Move to approve the consent agenda as written.
Second.
Second. Thank you, Ms. Gabriel. All in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
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 Opposed? Like sign. Unanimous. No committee report this evening, so we do have a loaded agenda this evening. We have 2 public hearings. And we have growth policy amendment, annexation, first reading for zoning, preliminary plat, another final plat and subdivision agreement, park easement, street maintenance assessment increase, our continuing resolution, I like to call it, and non-union salary adjustment, and resolution on acquisition of equipment for short-term treatment of PFAS. So it's going to be a long slog tonight. So with that, we're going to open up with the public hearing. And I'm going to open the public hearing on the solid waste master plan assessment increases and code updates. Council will accept comments on the proposed solid waste master plan, solid waste assessment increases, and code updates to Chapter 11 garbage, refuse, and weeds. Public hearing is open. Please step forward, state your name, and give the council your comments on this.
My name is Doug Rothy, 436 Northridge Drive, Kalispell. Honorable Mayor, Council, thank you for the opportunity to speak. In fairness, having looked at option 1A for residential and 1B for residential, and me living in the situation of 1B, I don't think that we all should be charged the same for the service. I realize that the costs are going up and we're going to have to cover those, but we go out 52 weeks a year in the dark or in the morning or in the rain or in the snow and take our barrels out to the curb. And twice a year, if we're lucky that we can coordinate it, we get the additional residential cart cleanup service. So it doesn't seem right that we should pay the same amount as those who get it 52 weeks a year and don't go out in the dark or in the rain or the snow. So that's my advice, and I would hope that you would agree. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Henry Oldenburg, I'm here speaking on behalf of my former neighbor who is 93 years old, and her concerns are very definite. Every day she takes her little garbage sack out with her 2 puppies and walks carefully out to the garbage service in the alley, and that's what she wants. There isn't any way under God in the heaven that she could handle a rollaway type of garbage can. And I'm here to tell you that she could not be at this meeting because she really can't leave her home. But I spent 36 years living across from her, and I can tell you that if you got a garbage can out in front or beside the house, wake up some morning and it's all full of junk. And I don't want to tell you what kind of junk. So I would very seriously offer to you my concerns, and I thank you for listening to me, that the money question is really not the question. We're going to pay the taxes. We just got that from the governor, et cetera, and we're going to have to pay for this. But I am very, very adamant in my comments and on behalf of my former neighbor that the alley service be retained, along with picking up refuse once or twice a year in the fall. I thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other public comments on the waste master plan? See, now I'm going to close the public hearing on that. We're going to move on to the second public hearing this evening, which is the Tourism Business Improvement District Work Plan and Budget. Council will accept comments on a proposed TBID work plan and budget that includes a request to increase the bed tax assessment to $4 per night per room. Open the public hearing. Ask anyone to step forward, state your name, and give your comments to the council, please.
My name is Andy Matthews. I'm at 1000 Base Camp Drive, Kalispell, Montana, 59901. Thank you for having the meeting tonight. I'm a part of the TBID district, even being as an RV park. I don't have any beds, just really nice places to park. But I get taxed on this apparently for 5 years. And I just can't track not even one person who's come to my RV park that was driven from this TBID program. The hotels get some business from it, but I definitely do not. My first question is, is there any possible way that I can be excommunicated from this membership of this program? The second one is, when I came to Kalispell many years ago to build the RV park, this tax was $1, and then it went up 100% to $2, and there was people against it, and now it's going from $2 to $4, and $4 is an extremely large amount for an RV park, pricing ranging from $50 to $110 a night. The state of Montana, I pay 8% tax, and they do a pretty good job attracting people to Montana. Those people usually drive in with an RV. Then I'm hit with this tax, this nightly tax that adds about 2 to 6 to 8% more on top of that, depending on where our pricing is. And on hotels, they pay a flat fee as well. If their pricing's $325 a night, that's like 1.25% tax. I'm paying 16, 17, 18% tax. And I'm fighting against free parking in the woods, free parking on the streets sometimes, Whitefish, no tax, Columbia Falls, no tax, Polson, no tax like this, other than the 8%. I just would like for you to take into consideration, is there any way to carve me out of this type of a tax? I also think, this entire $4, if you just applied it to Google Ads, Google Analytics, that would be the most powerful way to use this $4 or $2 or $1 versus this expansion of a program of a board that's controlling my RV park. There's only like 10 or 12 hotels in this board. and they're growing and they're growing and they're growing, and they don't even really have a business. They're just taking our money and applying it. And again, I've not been asked, I've not been brought forward. I'm not on the board. They have specific rules on who can be on the board. You have to have a certain number of rooms to be a certain part of the board, or smaller rooms to be another part of the board. I mean, I guess I could apply to be on the board. I've just kind of let this thing run through. But this increase really, really hurts me. We also don't tax Costco. They're massive, unimaginable dollar amounts they do per week, per day. Tremendous, psychotic numbers. You should find those numbers out. We don't tax Chick-fil-A. I specifically shop in Kalispell because I support Kalispell. If I'm in Whitefish, I don't really shop except to get a sandwich. And if I'm going to buy something at the sports house, I come back to Kalispell to save the tax. RVers are a very fickle group. They want a discount. They want a lot of stuff different than hotel people, and it just really, really hurts me, this $4 tax. It's very easy what the state's done, allowing this type of tax to be implemented. I'm not arguing with that, but why aren't we going after Costco? Why aren't we going after Chick-fil-A? I mean, I spend $18 a day there probably because I get 2 sandwiches, so I don't have to drive back there twice. Kalispell Toyota, same thing. We're not taxing them. All types of businesses. You're going to be trying to get teachers' pay increase, firemen's increase, all this stuff. Those are like 0.100th of a tax increase that you're going for. This is a 100% tax increase. And I know you have the power, and I know the board said they wanted it, but not everybody in that board or on that board wants it. And we definitely cannot physically handle it. And I know it's probably going to pass. I'm just telling you, it's going to hurt us in the future. New developers will second guess Kalispell as a place to build hotels. We've already lost a fantastic hotel. We don't know the real reason, but it's not coming now. Interest rates, obviously, maybe. There's a bunch of extended stay properties looking around. Different parts of the valley do not have these types of taxes. Just please take this into consideration, that my RV park is adversely affected. If there's any way to cut me out, keep me at $2, kick me out, do something, I would just really, really appreciate it. And I'm also not connected politically, so I don't know anyone in this room barely. I don't know how to talk to people to get them on my side, but I'm telling you, this tax hurts the lowest price point hotel person in the community, which are the affordable hotels, and I'm a part of that because I'm a RV park. Thank you so much for your time tonight. Please think about turning this down and letting it run at $2 for a while longer. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ian Fleming. I live in Kalispell at 249 Reserve Place. I'm very grateful that Discover Kalispell says that it finds destination stewardship important in its mission, saying that it's 15% of their operations. I grew up in a small town with a large tourist population, and it was a growing tourist population, big part of our economy. But I was just very grateful growing up that I was not in my neighboring communities where in the summertime when the cruise ships would come through, the population would double. People that lived there, it was very difficult. There was an entire section of town that people just wouldn't go into in the summertime because it was just completely tourist shops. I like that they're doing the stewardship for the destination stewardship. I think it's very important to make sure that we take care of our community members and that they see the benefits of the tourism that is coming here. But I have concerns that the budget does not reflect that what they've stated, being only 1% of their budget, as I can tell, is dedicated to that stewardship. So that's my concerns with that issue. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, they want to give comment on this item?
Go ahead, Diane.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Diane Medler with Discover Kalispell. Appreciate the comments before. I'd appreciate council's time to allow us to speak on this subject. First, I'd like to reiterate some of the salient points of the reason for this increase, which we had shared with council during our work plan and budget presentation. The TBID assessment, it is not a tax, it is a nightly assessment. It has been at $2 since 2012. Since that time, the cost of purchasing paid ads, the cost of purchasing Google AdWords, the cost to maintain platforms such as a website and other things has risen dramatically. The cost to be able to attract sports tournaments, events, meetings, and conferences has increased a lot. So the TBID board did feel that it was time, along with other destinations in Montana who are also increasing their nightly assessment to $4 a night, that it was time for us to do so to be able to be competitive in the tourism marketing industry is very competitive. Also want to reference that all TBID properties receive equal exposure and promotion. Unique properties such as RV parks or more of the boutique hotels actually can receive some additional exposure. We know that there's all kinds of travelers and they're looking for all different types of lodging. So we're lucky to have that variety. Also want to mention that all TBID board members have an opportunity to, all TBID member properties, have an opportunity to be on the board. And a notice of a board vacancy is sent out to all members when there is one available. Also wanted to mention, I appreciate Mr. Fleming's question about stewardship. This stewardship for our organization as a whole is very important. It does attribute to more than 20% of our organization's operations. We are supported by both the Tourism Business Improvement District assessment and that budget, as well as the bed tax budget. So for our organization, using both funding streams to support our initiatives, that's where the stewardship and visitor management, destination management initiatives come in. If you look at the organization as a whole, I think that you have council, you have seen over the years and through our annual work plan that we have a solid strategy for how the funding is used, a very comprehensive marketing plan, as well as destination development and business development. We have grant programs that support the community, a lot of programs and marketing initiatives that support our local businesses. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Diane. Any other public comment on the TBID work plan and budget? Seeing none, we're going to close the public hearing. Just to remind everybody, nothing happens tonight on those two items, but the comment is incorporated into our discussion moving forward. So at this point in time, we're going to open the meeting for public comment. Any individual wishing to address the council on items that are not on the agenda this evening are asked to step forward, state your name, and give the council your comments at this time.
Hi, Walter Roundtree. I live on the east side of Kalispell. I left my cell phone at home, so I can't time myself, but I'm going to try to keep an eye on the clock. I'd like to talk a little bit about the liberal and conservative roots of belief regarding homelessness and poverty. This will be incomplete and simplistic, like most of my opinions. Liberals believe that poverty and homelessness is caused to a large degree by societal factors. And that therefore it is the government's job to, possibly in partnership with the private sector charities, to address these things. Conservatives traditionally believe that poverty and homelessness are caused by individual factors, moral defects, such as laziness, addiction, poor decisions, and therefore they explicitly believe that poverty and homelessness is not government's job to mitigate the harms thereof. Conservatives believe that it is the private sector's job, the job of charities, to address these things. Specifically, what I'd like y'all to remember is that conservatives have given the job of mitigating the harms of poverty and homelessness to private charities, and thus should certainly not interfere with the job that they do, because they have told them, this is your job. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other public comments? Okay, with that, we're going to move on to the first action item this evening. Tronstead Meadows Whitetail Crossing Growth Policy Amendment Annexation Zoning and Preliminary Plat. This item considers adopting, revising, or rejecting a growth policy amendment, approving annexation and initial zoning of R3 residential, and preliminary plat approval for 380 lots on 110.5 acres on property located on the north side of Tronstead Road between Highway 93 North and Whitefish Stage Road opposite of Sirisuk Lane. There's 4 items, like I said, for consideration. Resolution on the growth policy amendment, the resolution on annexation, the ordinance on the first reading for zoning, and the resolution related to the preliminary plat. What we typically do, this has been picked up. We postponed this from the last meeting with a drafting error within one of the documents. So we postponed the meeting. We took public comment at the last meeting. We had a staff report at the last meeting, questions from council to staff. So at this point in time, we're going to pick it right back up with public comment. And then the council will move through the 4 items in succession. So I want all the public comment at this point in time. We've received, I think last count, over 150 emails, I think, roughly. A lot of public comments. We've had a lot of public testimony. So I ask that please, if you've already given all your comments, we've got it. If you have something new to add, please step up again. If you haven't spoken and you want to step up and speak, please step up and speak. So with that, we're going to open the meeting with public comment.
My name is Dan Munsing. I live on Tronstead. Thank you for listening to me. I have a couple things I do want to add. I'd like to talk about Tronstead Road. I did some calculations, and if you took 380 proposed lots and you put an average of 4 people in those houses, in each of those houses, that comes to 1,520 people that would live in that development. I looked at the population of different cities in Montana, and that actually exceeds the population of Summers, Thompson Falls, and Browning. I also became aware that it looks like Dusty Acres now has access and easement to Tronstead from the south, and that when Quail Meadows finishes their development, that will be another 40 houses, so there'll be another 80 houses, and that puts that number at, I think it's like 1,800. So now that puts a development and use of Tronstead with a population base of greater than the city of Eureka on a 1-mile, small, unimproved, narrow county road with 3 blind hills. So I don't think anyone's recommending that property not be developed, But as per testimony, Whitefish Stage may not be improved for another 5 to 10 years minimum, and there are many uncertainties. It seems to me possibly a little irresponsible to put the population greater than the population of Eureka into the use of Tronstad Road. The other thing that no one's brought up is probably the greatest population, the greatest traffic inducer is going to be that we're going to have south of Rose Crossing, Costco. And Costco, though wonderful, brings lots and lots of people from the surrounding area and from even Canada. So all those roads are going to be inundated with traffic. And so what I'm requesting is that you guys vote in a manner that understands that Tronstad Road is right now not ready for the massive amount of use that it's going to get. The other thing I'd briefly like to point out is that there's been a suggestion that this is a natural annexation and growth area of the city. I did invite all of you out there to look at it. I hope that you actually went to Tronstad and saw, and that would be wonderful if you did, because in that development, the only connection is somebody's backyard with a island of city, which is 39 houses in Quail Meadows. That's the only connection with city. And my understanding is that many of those large tracts, including the commercial ones, have no interest in becoming city now or possibly forever. So though the city presents it as though this is a natural progression, it doesn't appear that any of the neighbors are real interested in becoming city. So my encouragement is that we be wise, that we realize this development will happen at some point in time. The development at a proposal of 380 houses, and if we just picked a number at 150,000 per lot, this is a $57 million development. Something's going to be done. However, it does not appear that all the infrastructure is in order for this to be done in either a safe manner or a useful manner. And so I request that you guys consider that and consider voting no on the annexation to the growth policy at this point in time, and possibly and also the zoning until the appropriate things can be done so that we can be assured that adequate infrastructure is present. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, my name is Jeff Muller. I live on 45 Tronstad in Kalispell. I'm in opposition of this subdivision annexation and the growth policy amendment. I think one of my biggest concerns is the city planning and the process in which the city planning gives their review to the city council, or actually to the city planning department, and then to the city council. I don't think that having a developer, their engineers, you rely totally on their group to present everything, and with their stamp, you blanket and put a stamp on that. Okay, and I think the reason that the city does this is it limits them from liability. I think I got that from the attorney at this last meeting. Okay, one of the examples about that has come up next to us that's really true to our heart is the Quail Meadows. Quail Meadows subdivision was designed as a 39 lot subdivision that had waste, that the waste gravity fed into the sewer system on Tronstad. During the process of development, the neighbors noticed that the back of this subdivision raised 4 feet. Well, we had a little bit of a concern of this because I've got some, I want to pass these out.
You can hand them over here, sir. Sir? Over here.
So our concern with this subdivision and what had happened is we have photographs and there was a time when water from the Tronstad 110 acres, we had a really good snowstorm back in 2014. The water comes through the back of our subdivision at the Shaw's place and travels into that subdivision, which is now, or that 10 acres that is now Quail Meadows. Raising that up 4 feet literally put a dam on that road, on that property line, and stopped all the water from going into there naturally flowing. So there's two pictures, pictures 3 and 4, and you'll notice that there is a retention pond that after going to the city and voicing our concerns about this water, the engineer came out and they took a look at this and they made the developer put in this retention pond. If you look at it, you'll see 2 fences. There's a lower fence and an upper fence. The upper fence is where they raised this subdivision. Now, when we asked the engineer if these plans were ever amended and stamped by a city engineer, he said no. He goes, we strictly rely on city engineers, or not on, apologize, on the developer's engineers for all the process. And they stamp that they're held responsible. So now you've got a subdivision that is 4 feet higher that now infringes on privacy, looking directly into somebody else's yard. You've got a dam there that's going to stop all the water from going through. And if you look at number 5, you'll see the water that has come through on that property. You look at the amount of water that's on that property, and I threw in number 6 also. Number 6 is a picture of the property that's on that's going to be developed. That holds water. It has birds in it. And besides that, we'll let that one go. But that's the water that drains through. So where's that water going to go? If you look at that plan, there's not enough of a retention pond there to actually. So they made a concession to us that we're going to put the fence higher for privacy, and we'll put the bottom fence in. We're going to make this thing a dog park, and we're just going to call it good. And we said, has anybody done any calculations on this to find out if this thing's going to uphold? No calculations. Nothing was done by any engineer. They're just putting this in. So now the water that's coming down through there, we don't know where it's going to go. And whose liability is that? Is that going to be the city's liability? Is that going to be the developer's liability? This just presented what we think is mismanagement by the planning department. They don't oversee the plans well enough. They stamp them. The engineers should catch all these mistakes before they go through. And we're afraid on this new subdivision they're putting in that they haven't thought it all the way through. They haven't thought it through for the roads. They haven't thought it through for Whitefish Stage and Tronstad. They've made no concessions on doing anything to take care of that. And it goes on and on. I think you've heard enough testimony to go there. We'll move on to one of the other pictures. I think the one that's number 1 that's right in front, the stop sign with the sidewalk. Okay, that sidewalk, they ended the sidewalk right at that stop sign, right at Tronstad Drive, and we were still joking about it. At first, there was a considerable drop-off, so we ended up putting in fill on that so that at least it had a smooth transition going down. But we're wondering when the city or who's ever responsible is going to come over and they're going to take care of that. The other picture is the picture of Tronstad and 93. You take a look at that. There was an accident there about a month ago. It took out the stop sign, took out the road divide, the divided highway sign, and it took out the right turn lane. Since then, the right turn lane sign has never been put back in. Took 2 weeks. The sign with the stop sign and the divider was sitting on the side of the road. I picked it up. First, I went to the county. They said it wasn't our responsibility. Then I went to the city. They said, oh, that's not our responsibility. So I went to the county. That wasn't their responsibility. So we ended up going to the state. State turned around and said, oh, where was it done? Oh, this is on Tronstad. And they looked at me, and this is on Kalispell. They go, oh, that's the Whitefish Division. So we're so far out from the city itself. I don't think that the city has a grasp on what goes on out there, or is really closely in touch with the communities. And I guess that's probably about all I have to say. And I want to thank you very much for all the decisions that you've made, not just this one that you're making tonight, but all the decisions you make all the time. I know that you guys are just constantly bombarded with keeping the city running smoothly, and we hope you guys make the right decision tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else in the room?
Good evening. I'm Ming Munzing, and I live at 213 Tronstad Road. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. Thank you for your diligence and your wisdom and all of the intricate decisions that you have to evaluate. I want to say it's really been an eye-opener for me, attending meetings over the last 5 weeks at all you do. I am here tonight to flesh out some additional concerns regarding the proposed amendments to our city, or amendment to our city growth policy, specifically related to Tronstad Meadows Whitetail Crossing or Whitetail Crossing. These issues impact the immediate area, but also set a concerning precedent for our community's development strategy. Make it make sense. I listened intently to the staff report presented at May 20th and June 3rd City Council and looked over the packet included tonight for your consideration. It states that in the staff report, argument in favor of amending the growth policy to accommodate what actually appears to be an island of 110.5 acres that, quote, the area is becoming increasingly residential in nature and includes commercial, agricultural, and light industrial use. Also that, quote, the area is becoming increasingly urban in nature. Citing a list of approved developing and developed subdivisions like Silverbrook Estates, Quail Meadows, Eagle Valley to the south, Stillwater Village to the south, Dusty Acres, and the Farm District on Highway 93 at Church Drive. While this broad brushstroke report sounds compelling and maybe even convincing that the city is just growing in this direction and amending the current growth policy to spot zone this 110.5 acres makes sense, I'd like to give another perspective and paint another perhaps more detailed and accurate picture. One that points out the omissions in the staff report and which is perhaps more in line with the feedback you've been receiving from hundreds, over 150 residents and 600 people who signed a petition who have expressed many valid concerns over real problems that no one, not the city, nor the applicant, have been able to adequately address with definitive solutions at this time. Consider this. Despite a year of collaboration and extensive efforts working together, the applicant with the city staff, and their efforts to address public concerns that have come in over the last 5 weeks through letters, comments, phone calls, and a petition, issues raised have not been resolved satisfactorily. The preliminary plat and the recent 5-week push by the city staff and applicants have yet to yield definitive, trustworthy, long-term solutions. Do you think maybe more time is needed to conduct a thorough investigation or investigations of points that have been raised repeatedly in order to get a true perspective that would enable the city of Kalispell to proceed wisely, judiciously, and to avoid any legal pitfalls? The reasons outlined above strongly suggest that the city may want to adopt a more deliberate and thorough approach instead of hastily approving a fragmented annexation, zoning, and preliminary plat for a single developer. This caution is particularly warranted given the city's apparent vested interest in acquiring a significant water resource, the impact of which could pose serious risks to neighboring wells. To date, the safety and implications of this water resource have not adequately been investigated, nor are they understood. This perspective offers a more accurate reflection of the current land use and issues associated with the proposed 110.5 acre development. Additionally, the well-planned community developments referenced in the staff report's argument for annexation are not contiguous in any way, nor will they ever be, with the exception of a 75 feet of the back of one of the lots of Quail Meadows, yet which offers zero assets, access, egress, etc. whatsoever, and is no way a convincing argument in favor of annexation of the proposed 110.5 acres. The developments mentioned in the staff report substantially differ from the proposed subdivision in the following ways. Number one, they are planned communities, not just an island of lots. The subdivisions cited in the staff report to support annexations are well-established, planned communities, developed largely by local entities familiar with our community's needs. In contrast, the proposed Tronstead Meadows Whitetail Crossing consists merely of a preliminary plat map offering lots intended for individual sale. Claims of providing affordable housing suitable for service members in our community have proven misleading and should not justify project approval. Moreover, the development raises significant concerns about traffic management on Highway 93, the adequacy of Tronstead Road for increased traffic, and overall safety. It also lacks the infrastructure necessary for walkable, bikeable community and the upgrades required for Whitefish Stage to function as a major collector. Community feedback reflects profound doubts about the developer's ability to positively transform this area or address these critical issues effectively. Number two, the subdivision mentioned as part of the argument for amending and annexing have adequate access and egress. Tronstead Meadows, Whitefish Tail Crossing does not. The subdivisions referenced in the staff report all feature well-designed infrastructure that adequately supports access and egress, including connections to major highways capable of handling increased traffic volumes. In stark contrast, Tronstead Meadows Whitetail Crossing relies solely on an unimproved county road for access and egress. This road is plagued by 3 blind hills, winter drifting, deep roadside ditches, and weight restrictions during part of the year, which collectively pose significant safety risks. Additionally, this development would complicate jurisdictional responsibility over the 1-mile stretch of Tronstead Road between Highway 93 and Whitefish Stage, creating an inefficient mix of city and county oversight that has yet to be satisfactorily addressed. Literally from Highway 93, Tronstead Road will be city, county, city, county, city, county. Crucially, there are no clear solutions or reliable timelines for necessary traffic safety improvements at Highway 93 or for the proposed long-term enhancements of Whitefish Stage, raising serious concerns about the feasibility and safety of the proposed project. Please note that city staff has said that all these initiatives, the growth policy amendment, annexation, rezoning, preliminary plat, are all grouped together because they are, you didn't want to take the sliver approach, and because they're essentially connected. Great point. And important to consider that the cluster of concerning issues that surround this actually are also, and have been brought to your attention over the past 5 weeks, are all also inextricably connected. Number 3, local developers with a stake in our community versus out-of-state developers who have no real connection to our community. While Tronstad Meadows Whitetail Crossing utilizes 2 local representatives as the public faces of their project, the primary financial backing comes from CAE Properties and Elkan and Associates, firms based in Mobile, Alabama. And last week I did submit, or a couple weeks ago, I submitted this map. I think you all received that. This is all of the properties currently, the projects currently under management by Elkan and Associates. This large national company has a history of extensive developments across the country. The plan to develop 380 lots on just 110.5 acres seems to prioritize rapid financial returns over genuine community integration or long-term investment in our area. Critics of the project have described it as a hit-and-run strategy by an out-of-state developer more interested in quick profits than contributing positively to our community's growth and cohesion. Cohesion? I can talk loud, but okay. I don't know if it's not working, but many neighbors and community members have observed, so this is number 4, lack of transparency and perhaps ulterior motives. So many neighbors and community members have observed an eager push by the city of Kalispell, which seems to have been collaborating. Okay, yeah. Just.
Says it's working.
Okay. Hello. I don't know.
Is the red light on?
Red light's on, but it's not. I don't think it's working. So should I just speak up?
Yeah, if you could
Okay.
speak up. We have a guy coming that looks.
So lack of transparency and ulterior motives. Many neighbors and community members have observed an eager push by the city of Kalispell, which seems to have been collaborating closely with the developer behind closed doors for nearly a year. Despite repeated inquiries about the development of the 110.5 acre parcel, local officials have maintained there were no plans in place, assuring us repeatedly that nothing's on the books, nothing's in the works. Interesting that within weeks of such denials, and we have been making phone calls over the past year, once we knew that Don Dammel sold the property, to receive that type of response from the city. Neighborhood residents received notices about a planning board meeting for the proposed subdivision. That was within 2 weeks of the April 9th meeting. This pattern of lack of transparency culminating in a sudden invitation to a planning board meeting with only 2 weeks' notice, and we know that that's legally what the state is. What I'm not sure is legal, is it completely legal for when we make phone calls to the city planning department, to the city staff, that we are actually given untruths? I had a direct conversation, well, I'll just say, with only 2 weeks' notice, raises serious questions about transparency. Adding to the concerns, I did have a direct conversation with the developer, Mr. Elkan, who hinted that the city's interest in acquiring a water resource on the property might be driving their keen support of the project. This apparent ulterior motive for fast-tracking the development, despite substantial safety, traffic, and infrastructure concerns, suggests that the city's decision-making process might not be fully aligned with the community welfare nor transparency. Could it be that an ulterior motive may be a driver for the city staff to lack transparency or even at the inquiry of multiple neighbors and to promote and push this project so heavily and rapidly despite many contraindications of safety, traffic, access, egress, emergency services, maintenance access in winter months, traffic light at 93, lack of development of Whitefish Stage, water right concerns and things like that, and the development of Whitefish Stage, which has been stated to be as much as 5 to 10 years off to develop it. Consider this, questioning the rush to rezone. Please reflect on this. Surrounding the proposed Tronstead Meadows Whitetail Crossing are properties zoned largely SAG 5, SAG 10, some SAG 2.5, and commercial, each with its distinct land use and regulations. Simply because these areas are designated as residential, agricultural, and commercial does not automatically validate the placement of 380 lots on a mere 110 acres, creating a fragmented, spot-zoned landscape. This development requires extensive research and viable solutions for substantial concerns before any approval. The sole access to this proposed subdivision is via Tronstead Road, a narrow, unimproved county road notorious for heavy snowdrifts, 3 blind hills, seasonal weight restrictions, etc. Proceeding with the development under the current conditions could significantly disrupt traffic flow, escalating risks on a road that transitions, as we said, from city to county. Three of them in the city and 3 of them are in the county, multiple times within just a mile. Such an arrangement would likely result in a complicated, unmanageable mix of responsibilities that has yet to be thoroughly planned or addressed. And we did hear, I heard another neighbor speak, manages properties on 2 Mile about what goes on there, the problems with city, county, and management of the road. So voting yes to these proposals today on Tronstead Road will create a patchwork of city, the intersection of Highway 93, county, the road from 93 to Quail Meadows, city, Quail Meadows, county between Quail Meadows and the proposed subdivision, city at the Tronstead Meadows Whitefield Crossing subdivision, and the remaining 1/2 mile of Tronstead Road to Whitefish Stage. So before voting on these proposals, would the city of Kalispell, or could you say absolutely and exactly who will be responsible for and who will actually maintain this patchwork of 3 unconnected sections of city road and 3 unconnected sections of county road on Tronstead? Do you think it would be wise to have this and a host of other legitimate and problematic questions answered before you proceed? So I'd like to also bring to your attention the siting of other subdivisions in the vicinity that are not contiguous to this proposed site as a way to validate amending, annexing, rezoning, and approving a preliminary plat that's full of errors and omissions. It might appear on the surface to create a smooth argument, but it leaves out significant realities that must be factored in if you're looking to make a strategic and wise decision on behalf of the growth of our beloved city. Also, we urge you to look at other motives that may increase the city's eagerness to annex, namely to get access to an abundant known water source. So please consider a wise path forward that includes a focused look into the effect of the city drilling its own well and potentially impacting, as has been spoken about before and I know expressed, impacting and impinging on neighboring wells and neighbors' water rights before voting yes on any of this. The truth is that there is substantially no contiguous city property, with the exception of the 75 feet on the back of Quail Meadows, offering no assets and no potential for access or egress. It's difficult to find or make sense at all in the current proposal, given all the other issues and problems that are currently at play. So the entirety of the proposed 110 acres site is bordered to the north by SAG 10, and I don't know if we have the map we can pull up there or not, but it's bordered on the north by SAG 10, SAG 5, and some SAG 2.5, with no access or egress or additional property to be annexed, also Highland Drive. To the east, SAG 10, SAG 5, 170 acres belonging to Robert Koenig, who has made it clear, you can also confer statements on record made by Tim Koenig, that the family intends to maintain its SAG 5 zoning, divide the land among family members with no interest in selling it off or being annexed into the city. To the south of Tronstad Road is all rural residential with mixed-size lots from 1 acre to large parcels, including Sirachek Lane and all of the large subdivision of Ponderosa Pines. Please note that when city staff cites that the area is becoming increasingly residential in nature, please note it's already been residential, rural residential, agricultural, and some commercial. The residents of these rural areas are completely uninterested in being annexed into this city. The western border of the proposed 110.5 acres is zoned some rural residential in our neighborhood of Tronstad Drive in the county, yet largely zoned for commercial and light industrial, SAG 10, along the western border. In conversations with business owners along this border, I was surprised to note how many of them really did not know what was happening with this property. They had not received notice, even though I do believe they have they share boundaries. So including representatives from the Humane Society, Greg Bain, Kettle Care, First Class Grass Dispensary, Montana Fence, and Montana Digital, a consistent theme emerged. None expressed any interest in being annexed into the city. The feedback ranged from strong rejections like, no way in hell, to why would I do that? No thanks, not a chance. And both Eric Woodkey of Montana Fence and Chris Galloway of Montana Digital, whose property shares a 1,200-foot border and who has an 18-foot utility easement on the western edge of the proposed project, mentions that he has not been contacted at all and was concerned about actually having access to his easement. That because his easement, he said, must remain accessible, and they echoed the above sentiments. So regarding misrepresentation of contiguous commercial interests and lack of consultation, there's a notable disparity between the positions of these local businesses and commercial properties and the city staff reports regarding annexation. These businesses appreciate their special commercial zoning status, which allows them more operational freedom, lower taxes, fewer restrictions, and which are all factors critical for their growth and sustainability. So despite their clear disinterest in annexation, these sentiments appear to be either overlooked or misrepresented by city planning efforts, which have presented the area as ripe for high-density development. This misalignment highlights a lack of genuine consultation and misrepresentation of business interests in the planning process. Spot zoning concerns. Moreover, the proposed rezoning to accommodate this single large-scale development project appears to be a clear case of spot zoning, which is typically defined as the application of zoning to a specific parcel of land within a larger zoned area when the rezoning is usually at odds with a city's master plan and existing zoning restrictions. This practice is generally considered exclusionary and unjust, benefiting only a specific entity while disregarding the broader community interests and existing rights of adjacent property owners. Call for a thorough reevaluation. In conclusion, the proposal to annex the 110.5 acres for the Tronstad Meadows Whitetail Crossing development significantly diverges from the community's established interest and the principles of sustainable growth, as emphasized by the widespread disapproval from community, neighbors, local businesses, and the potential misalignment with the current growth policy amendment statutes that require amendments to the growth policy to integrate communities by creating connected, walkable, bikeable neighborhoods and not favoring one developer or individual interests over the greater good of the community. So does the City Council have enough information to provide certainty to the public this evening that all of these concerns have been sufficiently addressed? Please also see the potential need for compliance with Montana Land Use and Planning Statute 7-24325. I did attach it to something I sent out literally like 20 minutes before your meeting tonight. And I don't understand it completely, but there are some issues in there, or potentially. So the prevailing commercial and light industrial zoning, valued by entities such as Humane Society, Kettle Care, Montana Digital, for its flexibility and lower tax implications, starkly contrasts with the proposed high-density residential development. These businesses, integral to the economic fabric of our area, have unanimously, or not unanimously, have largely expressed. There was one I didn't talk to. The vet clinic and I were playing phone tag. Expressed their opposition to being annexed into the city, highlighting a significant discrepancy between the actual community sentiment and how it is portrayed in the city staff reports. This consistent opposition, coupled with concerns about inadequate infrastructure, environmental impacts, and lack of transparency, underscores the need for a more thoughtful approach to community planning. It's crucial that any development aligns with the genuine needs and growth strategies of the existing community, rather than imposing unsuitable changes that could lead to long-term detrimental effects on both the social and the environmental landscape of the area. Therefore, I urge the City Council to reconsider the proposed amendments, taking into account the substantial community opposition, the strategic misrepresentations in the planning reports, and the need for adherence to state land use statutes, and the demand a comprehensive and a consultative approach to urban development. Let's prioritize a development strategy that truly reflects the best interest of all stakeholders, fostering an environment where both existing businesses and residents can thrive without the undue burden of ill-conceived growth policies. Very much, thank you so much for listening to me tonight. I just appreciate each and all of you for the difficult decisions you make, and I know you're going to each be making those decisions wisely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Colby Shaw. I reside and own 89 Tronstead Drive. However, I want to make note that I do own 361 2nd Avenue West North in Kalispell, Montana. It's been conveyed a few times to me that if you don't live in city, you're really not a constituent to this council or to the staff, which I find sad to hear that, but I've heard it a couple of times. I just want to be clear. I am also a resident of City of Kalispell, and I pay City of Kalispell taxes. This process, I know that development team, Frank Garner did come to my house twice. He is a gentleman. His reputation precedes himself. He's a good man. He came to my house twice. We agreed to disagree. But since this process has begun, there's been some changes. When it first started, they wanted to use the irrigation well that was currently at that residence. It took some of us neighbors and Jim Chambers to kind of help everybody understand that that irrigation is only for agricultural purposes and a seasonal. So that has changed. There's no longer a well that is usable for municipality to augment your water. And I understand the city is looking for wells, but I also understand it's a $5.4 million bill for the city to put a new well in. And it would seem to me that before the city would want to annex it in, that you'd want to have the developer test it to make sure there's no forever chemicals or it's not going to affect the wells around us. Matter of fact, a lot of us still have a water right, not the same one that Brian Kelly has or probably the Koenig family, but we do have a water right that is to the surface water of Stillwater River. And how is that going to affect us? We have not heard anything from that, nor has Brian Kelly. Another concern is that intersection with the traffic light. Right now, it looks like it's proposed as a skewed intersection. I measured it out, Silverbrook Drive and Tronstead Road, the center lines are about 40 feet apart from each other. So you got Silverbrook, Tronstead. So if you skew it to cross, you're going to have to widen that intersection really wide to make it work. And how's the pedestrian and bike paths going to work? The other thing that happens in that area is it's a low part of this valley. I've lived here my whole life. The fog hits there immensely. It gets thick. You can't see sometimes, probably 10 feet in front of you.
There's so many times I come home from Whitefish and I'm trying to take a left on Tronstead and I can't find it. And now there's a median right there that is not really lit up very well, and some people probably just run right over it. But the point is, people's depth perception is affected with that fog. And we had a really bad fog year this year. And I know there was an accident at Rose Crossing this year due to that fog. Somebody was trying to take a left-hand turn and did not see somebody coming. If that thing is not lined up at 90 degrees, you're going to have issues. You're going to have issues with depth perception. You're going to have issues with people trying to cross that road or ride their bikes. And I don't know how you're going to straighten that out. So to me, Montana Department of Transportation has not approved that skewed intersection. I know it's something that the development team has said they'd probably get behind. However, they have not approved it. So why would we move forward without knowing that Montana Department of Transportation is going to approve that intersection? The other thing that had started too is there was an easement or an access point to the north, probably from Emergency, to access Highland Drive. And since we started this 2-month process, it came out that this development would not be able to access that road. And I kind of asked myself, and I'd hope you do too, that I don't know if you looked at that property, that's pretty deep. You'd go all the way back there and see people try to get out of there. It's going to be very difficult without having an emergency exit to the north and south. And I believe most subdivisions typically have accesses on both ends of a subdivision. The drifting is a major issue. I know it was brought up about Tronstead Road being plowed, and yeah, the county does plow its secondary road, which means they get to it a little bit later. But that subdivision is not going to get plowed immediately. And to the east, there's no wind block. There's nothing blocking the wind and drifting. We're just trying to be neighborly here, and we live here, and we're just trying to tell you what happens out here. I've been snowed in 5-6 times. One of them was so bad that my son had to get hockey. I was his hockey coach. We had to get to Whitefish. The only way we can get there is literally put snowshoes on, go through our subdivision and out to Tronstead Road to have a neighbor pick us up or a teammate of his family pick us up to take us to Whitefish to a hockey game. That was the only way to get out of there. And that's what's going to happen with this subdivision. It's just land. It's just lots. There is no barrier. They're going to start, if you do approve this, I hope not, but they're going to start on the, I guess it'd be the west-south side and then kind of a clockwise motion, and it's going to be exposed to drifting. And these small lots, nobody's going to have room to put their snow blowers and their snow plows. This is what you need in Montana. You need to have room to put your equipment to plow these in these drifty seasons that we have. There is no block there. It comes right from Glacier. It's just a clear path, and it just blows and fills in all over us. But also talking about the size of that subdivision, I was really disappointed that when it showed up as R3, knowing that Silverbrook is R2, and you think, okay, in real estate industry, you always go by comparables, and geez, we're pretty much identically right where Silverbrook is, and at minimum, why wouldn't we be R2? A little bit bigger lots. R3 is just kind of for us as a neighborhood, it's kind of I don't know, it's not a good plan, we don't feel. Silverbrook currently does have another phase to be built that could have about 200 plus homes. Eagle Ranch, that still has 140 plus homes to be built. They have 10 acres to do other type of high density units there, and they still have another phase to do there. So there's plenty of properties to exist there. What's going to happen with these lots is you're going to find builders going to sweep up, grab a bunch of them. You're going to find speculators trying to buy lots and sit on for 2, 3, 5 years, whatever it takes to double their money or close to. And it's not going to be in-state. It's not going to be local people moving out there. Those property taxes on new homes is outrageous. I mean, this is what we really need to be focused on is property taxes and actual homes that are 350 or livable spaces that are 350 and under. That takes care of our workforce. You approve a subdivision with 380 homes. It's a lot of out-of-state people moving here. That's putting a lot of stress on our infrastructure. All your servers, all the people that work around this valley that work retail and restaurants and hotels, it's more stress on them. It's a lot of stress on them and a lot of stress on business owners by just keep adding homes and adding more people coming in here that aren't contributing to the workforce. They're really not part of that. They're going to come here to enjoy the Flathead and spend their money and go out and eat. So I just feel that there's something in this that just doesn't feel right in my gut, and I hope that somewhere in your guts that something's just not adding up with this subdivision. It's just a little bit too soon, too fast. Again, let's see what Montana Department of Transportation comes back with. Let's wait for Whitefish Stage to get expanded. Let's make it safer. And even at the current plat right now as R3, per state law, as my understanding is you have to have, I can't remember the point for so many lots, but it works out being 11.4 acres. And right now, it's at 9.3 acres because I believe that a utility water park, if you do put a well in there, that's over an acre, and you can't count that towards park. And so I hope you really consider that too, that R3 doesn't have the proper park space currently. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mayor and Council, Frank Garner, Crestview Road, Kalispell. And just here to say briefly, this is our fourth meeting in front of the city, and so we feel like you have the information that you need. We feel like we submitted a proper and complete application. We've seen the staff report and their recommendations, and we agree with it, and we agree with the findings and recommendation of the planning board. What we'd like you to just remember quickly is that this process has taken a long time. We've tried to be thoughtful and considerate in those areas where we can add value and add value now. I think everybody here knows that growth is coming. These improvements that we've talked about and the safety issues you've heard about are not going to get fixed until that development comes. How long should we wait? We'd like to build single-family houses. And if we start today, it's going to be a while before we see a stick go up because of all the work that is necessary to go into it. So I would encourage the council, knowing that we're going to need additional single-family housing. I think you've done a great job on the multifamily side of providing other alternatives. I think that's needed in single-family housing. We'd ask for a due pass and appreciate your consideration.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and the council. I'm Travis Taylor, 1210 Birch Grove Road. I strongly oppose the development, as I've said many times before. Part of me feels like I should just say whatever she said and sit down. Well done. But in short review, the density does not match the surrounding neighborhood at all. The density is abhorrent when you look at what's around there. We are rural, we are agricultural, and we are barely residential. As she said, there is no impending growth around us. A couple rapid fire things that we've talked about in the last several weeks are, we use the excuse that we would have to skip over county land to develop future city land if we didn't do this, but we already skipped over county land to build quail meadows. We're skipping over another piece of county land to build this if we do build it. And as we've all stated repeatedly, there is no one on the other side of it who has any intention of joining the city. So I don't know where that veiled threat comes from that we would have to skip it over, but I don't think it holds water because we skipped it whenever we wanted to in the past. This area is not inside the annexation boundary. I understand it's inside the growth policy boundary, but that's a giant blurb that covers half the valley and doesn't really hold a lot of water to me. It's not within the planned annexation boundary, nor was this planned for any annexation. You've heard numerous comments about the safety concerns of Tronstad Road. The city will not have the jurisdiction to improve the entirety of Tronstad Road. We've had numerous discussions about the traffic light, and we were made promises about the traffic light, but we have no legally binding agreements from MDT about the traffic light. And I will reiterate a previous comment of who wants more traffic lights. I do not. We were told previously that if this development doesn't get built, there is nothing in the works that will trigger a traffic light on Highway 93, and I think that's a good thing. The density does not match this area. You've heard from all the residents around there who are all adamantly opposed to it. There are many other voices that couldn't be here tonight. I realize that's anecdotal evidence, probably doesn't count for much, but it is true. And one last thing that I will say is I do not agree that the growth is inevitable. I do not agree that the growth is coming no matter what we do. I think I've said this before, that I believe that's the idea behind our representative form of government, and that we have the ability to control our future. I do not think that we all have to stand by and watch the quality of life that we care about slip away and then stand here 10 years from now and go, oh, wasn't it nice the way things used to be? We have the ability, you have the ability to make those decisions to protect this way of life that is why we all live here. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Any other comment? Okay, somebody online? Several.
Michelle, you can go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Again, my name is Michelle Weinberg. You've heard from me before. I'm an attorney and I represent Sandy and Jeff Moeller. I have submitted prior written and oral public comment in opposition to these matters you're considering here tonight, and I will not repeat myself to explain the various legal deficiencies with the application of the public process. But I did want to, based on testimony I heard tonight, I did want to weigh in because I heard testimony that the city's planning department had received inquiries regarding any potential development proposals on the subject property, but were told but these inquiries were met with denials of any development plans. Now, under Article 2, Section 9 of the Montana Constitution, the public has a fundamental right to examine public records and observe the deliberations of public bodies. It's a self-executing provision such that legislation is not required to give it effect, and citizens may bring suit to remedy violations of the right to know without invoking an implementing statute. It applies, this Article 2, Section 9 applies to all persons and all public bodies of the state and its subdivisions, local governments, without exception. Articles 2, Section 8 of the Montana Constitution provides the public with a fundamental right to participate in the government's decision-making process. These two sections of Article 2 under the Montana Constitution are coextensive provisions such that these two rights cannot be analyzed in a vacuum. And to participate effectively and knowledgeably in the public process of democracy, one must be permitted the fullest imaginable freedom of speech, and one must be fully apprised of what the government is doing, has done, and in this case, is proposing to do. To that end, municipal governing bodies are required to develop procedures and adopt rules to ensure adequate notice and to assist public participation such that citizens are permitted, encouraged, and afforded a reasonable opportunity to submit their views and to be apprised of what the government is proposing to do. So as you know, the city of Kalispell does have procedures in place for the public to request public documents from city departments, including the planning department. So if it is indeed true that the public was not only met with denials when interested citizens contacted the city about development plans for the subject property, and were also not expressly informed that they could submit a public records request pursuant to City Resolution 5804 to receive the draft applications, email communications, meeting notes, et cetera, which of course have to be in the public record in the planning department at the very least. These are all public documents that the public is entitled to inspect and reproduce. So if indeed if the public was indeed instructed that no development plans were being proposed and were not told that they could submit a public records request to that end, such actions would certainly violate the right to know and the right to participate under the Montana Constitution. So that's all I wanted to add here tonight. My client respectfully requests that you approve Resolution 6197C, denying the growth policy amendment, and deny Resolution 6198, Ordinance 1921, and Resolution 6199. Thank you.
Thank you.
Robert, do you want to go ahead?
Sure. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Thank you. City Council, Mr. Mayor, this is Bob Ablin from Ablin Traffic Services down in Bozeman. I performed the traffic impact study for this project. I just wanted to really briefly kind of talk about what we did here, just in the sense that we've been working on the review and traffic analysis for the project for a couple of years now, as this thing has gone through a couple different iterations. It's been reviewed by the city several times, and we've submitted it to MDT, and currently we're working on the design plans and working out the traffic signal timing improvements for that proposed signal onto 93 at Tronstead Road, I think we've gone through a lot of these questions too with the city and with the state, and as far as how we implement these things, the state has some specific rules we need to follow. But I think we're working through that process fairly well, and I think that we can use these improvements to actually help out the traffic conditions in that area as these developments build out. Other than that, I think I'm going to just offer myself to answer any questions you guys might have later. And I will leave it at that for now. But please, if you have more questions, I'll be on. And if you need more guidance on the traffic questions, I will be listening and can be available to answer questions. So that's it for me for now.
Thank you, sir. That's it. Okay, one last time through the room. Okay. The close public comment on this, we're before Resolution 6197. We're going to be talking for a while, I imagine, so I want to give council a 5-minute recess. Because, you know what, we're all getting to that age.
Okay.
Yes.
If you insist, Mr. Mayor.
I have sat here way too long until 11 o'clock at night.
I'm a slave driver on the planning board. I don't give any recesses.
I can't sit anymore. I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Oh, really? Even with going back?
And nobody can see me out here.
That's all right.
Okay. Calling the meeting back into action. First item up for consideration would be Resolution 6197, A, B, or C, Growth Policy Amendment. Look to council. Mr. Graham.
Real quick, Your Honor, I need a clarification on the difference between A and B. One is revised amendment, the other one is just the amendment. I'm trying to pull it out and I can't.
You can't grab it there?
Huh? Well, I can't figure out through the text. I don't know what the amendment or the revision to the amendment is between A and B.
It would be anything.
Yeah. It's
Okay.
whereas
Okay.
blank on B that we would, it's fill in the blank.
Okay, got it.
A is accept it, B is you make changes to it, C is you reject it.
Got it.
Don't all jump. Remember, I don't make a motion normally unless I absolutely have to. Mr. Graham.
Okay. I'll jump in here. This is a problem though, but okay. I'm gonna make a motion to adopt resolution number 6197A, a resolution adopting an amendment to the Kalispell Growth Policy Planet 2035 Future Land Use Map by extending the Kalispell annexation boundary area to include a 110 acre tract of land, more specifically described as parcel 2A of certificate of survey number 21853, located in the southeast quarter of the northwest quarter, the northeast quarter of the southwest quarter, the west half of the southwest quarter of the northeast quarter, and the west half of the northwest quarter of the southeast quarter of section 18, township 29 north, range 21 west, PMM, Flathead County, Montana.
Second.
Second. Thank you, Mr. Dowd. Discussion on your motion.
So normally, I guess so. The way I see this is that this tract of land, this piece of property, is currently in the growth policy. What we're looking at here is a changing of the annexation boundary line within the growth policy. So I think that goes and fits for what we're talking about. My question is, this whole discussion as a whole, if right now we're talking about the growth policy, but to me there's things later on down the road in this discussion that affect me on whether or not I vote on this, because I don't want our applicant to go through, depending on where I land in some of these other issues, I don't want our applicant to end up with a situation that they're not asking for. So in this motion, are we going to go, is it okay to have conversation about further motions that we're going to be making?
On this, yes. We do often.
Yeah. Okay.
But what I'm wondering is in all reality, is 6197B more appropriate? Because as you look at some of these other things, Mr. Graham, the question is, can you put some amendments within this, or some documentation into this to affect some of the things that you're concerned about?
Yeah, I wouldn't know. I don't know about it because each of the other ones goes and has its own item specifically to it, like preliminary plat, the annexation, the zoning. So each one pertains to those. So I'm going to step back and see what council thinks about the motion.
I seconded that. I'd just like to frame it. This is specifically just the growth policy amendment and the annexation boundary change. I'm unclear as to whether B or C changes the annexation boundary and or growth policy. So the growth policy, this area is within the growth policy. And the reason it's not within the annexation boundary is because we creep that annexation boundary out so that we don't get too far ahead of our infrastructure, right? So as far as this is concerned, water, sewer, fire, and police are all adjacent to the property. Because this is the 93 corridor for fire and police. And so it would be natural just to annex this in under normal circumstances. So this has nothing to do with the actual development or the plat that we're going to be talking about later. But as far as the annexation piece of this, I don't have a problem with that part of it, because it's very common for us to have something that was within the growth policy that we then annex in because we determine that we're not going too far out for our infrastructure.
Other discussion?
So if A fails, B can come up. We just have to come up with changes. Am I understanding that correctly? If A fails, B would be our next transition, or C, B or C. Okay.
Yeah, there's still resolution on it.
Still, okay.
We're still
I just wanna-
discussion, so yeah.
And that's the thing is I see this as exactly what you said is, you know, it's in the growth policy already, and it's a continuation and extension of the growth policy. I mean, the annexation boundary policy. So technically none of that really has anything to do with where I'm hung up anywhere else on this. So, I mean, I can get behind this.
I think maybe that some people, maybe some of the council is a little bit concerned that we go ahead with the annexation and the boundary, but then we get into a situation where the zoning and or the plat is under question and may not pass. Is that a bad area to leave the applicant in? Is that, am I reading this correctly? I don't think that we have a choice, though. We have to do this first, or we can't even go on and talk about the other
Correct.
pieces.
Yes.
Yeah,
You
so
have to decide, are you gonna pull it into the annexation boundary to move forward with the conversation?
Yeah,
If you don't, the topic's done.
So if we pull it into the annexation boundary, and then one of the other two or both of those, for whatever reason, change, modify, or fail, and the applicant decides not to go forward, since we've done this resolution, would that annexation stay there?
So with this resolution, you're not annexing, you're moving the annexation boundary.
Okay.
So there's a lot of properties within the annexation boundary that are not annexed.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that brings you to 6198, which is the annexation. So one way or another, you're gonna cross this.
Correct. It comes down, yep.
You're good? So just to point out that the annexation boundary does move up and down the full west side, almost the full 90% of the full west side of this property. So, any other discussion on the growth policy amendment to move the annexation line? Have a roll call. Oh, Mr. Hunter?
Yeah, sorry, I did want to jump in here. I appreciate it. Apologize being kind of remote. I'm sitting in a hotel in Dallas, Texas here. Yeah, so I just wanted to add some thoughts on this. I appreciate kind of the conversation so far and the difficulty here with this vote. Looking at the amendment to the growth policy to bring in the annexation, I see, the three kind of triggers that need to be addressed. And I went through each one, and the first one is whether or not it's in the path of future annexation. And with all of these, I was kind of wondering, what does that mean? And I think we've talked about this a little bit already, where it's, we don't want to see kind of hopscotching of development. And with this, it's pointed out by staff, it does actually touch city boundary, but as pointed out in public comment, that just barely, right? I mean, it's kind of like technically it meets it, but it's pretty precarious there. It's only just barely kind of meets that criteria. The other one was within the fire service area, and that one again I was confused by because what's in the fire service area is what's within city limits, and if it's outside some city limits, not within the fire response area. But when I went back and read through kind of more the context of this section of our growth policy, I realized that kind of earlier on in the section, it talks about the 5-minute service area of the fire department. And that 5-minute service area didn't actually get included, it is my kind of reading of it in the actual trigger, but I believe that's what it was referring to. So I requested from staff the 5-minute service area map. Turns out we don't have one, but we do have a 4-minute service area and a 6-minute service area map. And looking at that, it is clear that it would fall in within the 5-minute service area for the fire department. So it does meet that second trigger. Then the third trigger is whether it meets any of the key goals of the growth plan. Going through those goals, I didn't feel like it did a very good job of meeting those goals. A lot of them are within housing, the housing question, particularly providing diversity of housing. And, all as we move forward, if we get to that point, I'll probably talk more about the housing issue. But I don't believe it's providing a diversity of housing. It's actually doubling down on the housing type that we have the most of, which is single family housing. And as been commented, it's not providing a lot of progress on affordable, attainable housing, which I'll get into more probably at a later point in the discussion. So technically, I think it meets those two of the three triggers, and therefore can meet the criteria, though it's somewhat precarious. And then the bigger question, though, because I do recognize that a growth policy is an advisory document rather than a regulatory document, as been pointed out by staff. The question is, should we do this? And there's a number of questions come up for me with that one is, the loss of agricultural land. And this is irrigated farmland. A lot of the farmland that we bring into the city and develop is hayland. It's less valuable agricultural land. This is more valuable because it has an irrigation system on it. I've recognized comments about the wildlife use, the standing water, and the waterfowl that's on there. I work in conservation, so that's always a big concern of mine. On those 2 points, though, the thing that really gets me and what makes a decision like this so difficult is the lot is already approved for 2.5 acre development in the county. And with 2.5 acre development, you lose the agriculture. So the agriculture gets lost regardless whether it comes into the city or not. Same with wildlife habitat. 2.5 acres is really not anything for other than some deer, but I get deer in downtown, my house in downtown Kalispell. So you lose the any kind of wildlife habitat as well at 2.5 acre developments in the city or in the county. And probably the same with the water retention issues that folks are concerned about in terms of the flow of water off the site, because you'll still have streets and impervious surfaces. So that's if it were a situation where the county actually did some planning and zoning and conserve their ag land and conserve their wildlife habitat and their open spaces, this would be a different conversation, but that's not the reality we live in, and we unfortunately can't control what the county does. Instead, we're faced with that stark choice of have it develop in the city or have it develop in the county. And the status quo of leaving it as farmland, unfortunately, and wildlife habitat is just not on the table. Uh, the last point, people have spoken about the rural character and the rural nature of the area, and I certainly understand that. I did drive out there and take a look at it, and I understand that concern, and I would love to see the area stay rural and open space as well. The problem that I see is that once it gets developed, we're talking about the development that's going to be there for 100+ years. The neighborhood I live in is 120 years old at least, and it's not changing anytime soon. So if you lose that area to 2.5 acre developments, it's going to be 2.5 acre developments for 100 years plus, likely. And the city may grow all the way around it, and it will no longer be rural. And yet you're still stuck with these 2.5 acre lots on septic systems. And that's the problem. And I know people talk about, well, you survey the surrounding landowners and they have no interest in coming into the city. Well, we all age and pass on. And so they may not, but the next landowner may. And so at some point, we may be growing out there. In fact, you look at the map, as staff pointed out, there's a lot of reasons why this area may make the most sense for future development. So we have to look at the long term in terms of development, not just kind of the status quo as it is today. So there's a lot there. I'm really torn on it, but ultimately I do think urban development, city development is better than the sprawl that comes with 2.5 acre developments, because I really rely on, and what's very powerful for me is the comment that staff made in the presentation, which is if you take the same number of housing developments and put it at 2.5 acre lots, you're looking at developing 1,000 acres rather than 110. I don't want to lose 1,000 acres to sprawling development. I don't. I hate that we would lose 110 acres. I don't want to see that, but that's the reality that we're faced with. And I certainly don't want to lose 1,000 because we're going to put it at 2.5 acre lot development, county level development. That is a tragedy repeated over and over and over again. So it's a tough decision. I think this is probably, I think everybody would agree, one of the toughest development proposals we've looked at. I have more to say about the proposal. I have kind of additional thoughts and concerns and issues when we get to the zoning and the plat, and I'll speak to those. But those are my thoughts on the growth plan amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Hunter. Mr. Dowd?
Thank you, Your Honor. And I don't want to make it sound like I'm taking the annexation boundary too lightly, but as we all know, here on council, we are in the throes of implementing Senate Bill 384, right? And part of that is to basically redo the growth policy, which includes the annexation boundaries and everything like that. Hopefully it's not a shock to anybody that the 93 corridor is going to probably be within the annexation / growth policy boundary of either Kalispell or Whitefish at that time. And luckily, we're not fully into 384, or you would not have the ability to actually even oppose this at the council level. They're taking that away from you. If you didn't know that, you would have to do this at the city planning board level. And then doesn't even come before council. So hopefully we're all really enjoying the ability that we have right now to have your voice here on council. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that in at the end. I think that regardless of whether we include it tonight or it happens when we have to redo the whole thing here next year, it's going to happen.
Mr. Nunley?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but that was 382 and it would not come to the planning board. It would actually be done at staff level for approval.
I think it still hits the planning board, but it doesn't hit the council.
There's a lot of nuances that are still getting worked out.
Yeah, it's in
you
court
know,
right
but
now.
it
We
is
don't
Senate
know.
Bill 382, and the premise is that everything will be done administratively at the staff level.
I stand corrected, 382. Thank you.
So my question then would be, if for some reason this development did not happen, they either pull out or we don't accept it. If 382 comes into full implementation and then this development decides to try to go forward with something maybe a little different, we could be talking duplexes and ADUs on top of that by right. Am I correct in that?
I hate hypotheticals, but yes, there's a big push that's even taking minimum lot sizes and such off the table, which would pretty much open up properties like this into duplex, triplex, fourplex, and really it is that. So single-family zoning essentially at the state level will be out off the table. At least there's a court case as
Right.
we speak on that. And, moving forward, we'll likely see more than that at the next legislative session.
Okay, thank you.
Quick question. So last time we went through the growth policy was 2017, correct? 2017? Yes.
So, no.
No?
We've looked at the growth policy numerous times. So the text of the growth policy, but we've done the water facility plan, the sewer facility plan, the transportation plan, urban renewal plans. We're continually updating, which are all tied back to our growth policy. So the growth policy map and the growth policy text before you was 2017. However, there's been numerous map updates that have happened over time. There's been a lot that has happened since that time.
And when is the next major kind of look at that growth policy? When is that scheduled for?
Pretty much starting as we speak, we have 2 years,
Till May of 26, right?
May of 26 to adopt Senate Bill 382 and the requirements of that. So as part of that, we'll have to be updating the growth policy, which has, more things that we have to do, incorporating into that, which then does make everything administrative as part of that to a certain extent. But, there's a number of things in there that the city will have to adopt, i.e. housing, all the 5 housing strategies. There's a lot that's still to come, but yes, that is slated for now to have to be adopted by May of 2026.
So when we get to that point, I know that there's a lot of city-county interfaces going on here. When is that, and I don't want to sound negative, but when is that relationship going to improve to where something like this happens and we have a city annexation and then there's a county road and then there's this kind of like interface that doesn't kind of solve these problems that we're kind of seeing here?
I think, Ms. Dahlman, I can meet with you after council for about 7 days and talk to you about the history of
Okay.
Flathead Regional Development
I mean,
Office,
it's a
et cetera, et
concern.
cetera. It's a concern.
It's a concern.
And it's one of those things that way things are currently structured, it's not going to happen with
We're
that.
growing.
No, I understand. Fortunately, though, where we have the political side that can't come to grips with that planning staff, we do have a lot of cooperation amongst the management between the cities and the county that works to try to ease a lot of these things with agreements. But as far as a regional planning, good luck, especially with 382.
I think for me, maybe I got my rose-colored glasses on, and you're telling me I do. I hear ya, but with reviewing the growth plan, I would like to see that happen so there's less of this, because there's been a lot of decisions in the 3 years I've been sitting here that have come up with these same issues. There's an annexation, there's the building, there's growth, and then the road and the sidewalk and it's not safe.
Well, and it's, dare I say, I mean, we'll get back to we're still loosely speaking towards
Yes,
the motion.
we're loosely speaking.
But when we look at that, we often hear, put the infrastructure in first and then approve it. Okay. Unfortunately, in Montana, the developer pays for that infrastructure. We don't have a pot of money as a municipality, as a county, as anything to build infrastructure to say, this is what we're going to put in, and we'll see development then spread. We can't play Sim City as a municipality. So we look for those opportunities, dare I say, to take the developer with costs that we want them to shoulder within reason. It's an even playing field. And look for that infrastructure to come in piecemeal over time, because we don't have that ability. We've done that with water and sewer, and I can remember signing those bonds for water and sewer, so we have those. And that's just that alone is a big step to go out and bond the improvements for water and sewer, much less go to start adding traffic infrastructure throughout the
I
area
hear
within
you.
the
I
growth
do.
policy.
I do.
We could easily ask, hey, let's form a rural SID. Tronstead, improve your road, and
I don't think y'all would like that.
yeah. So, but these are the ways that we look at infrastructure, and it's how it's worked in Montana. Right or wrong, it's the playing field that we have.
Okay. Thank you.
So I'm gonna loop back. We have a motion on 6197A. Any more discussion on the annexation side? Annexation bound and growth policy amendment for the annexation. So, see no other discussion, go have a roll call vote on 6197A.
Counselor Dowd?
Aye.
Counselor Dahlman?
No.
Counselor Fisher?
No.
Counselor Hunter?
Aye.
Counselor Nunley?
Aye.
Counselor Carlson?
Aye.
Counselor Gabrielle?
Aye.
Counselor Graham?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye, motion carries. Next item is motion on resolution 6198. This will be the annexation.
I know it's here.
What?
Page 197 in the packet.
197.
Mr. Dowd?
6198, correct?
Yeah.
Your Honor, I move resolution number 6198, a resolution to provide for the alteration of the boundaries of the city of Kalispell by including therein as an annexation, as an annexation, certain real property described as parcel 2A of certificate of survey number 21853, located in the southeast quarter of the northwest quarter, the northeast quarter of the southwest quarter, and the west half of the southwest quarter of the northeast quarter, and the west half of the northwest quarter of the southeast quarter of section 18, township 29 north, range 21 west, PMM, Flathead County, Montana, to be known as Tronstead Meadows Addition number 471, to zone said property in accordance with the Kalispell zoning ordinance and to declare an effective date. And you got me on that.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Gabriel. Discussion on the motion.
So this is the actual annexation, since
The
I
actual
moved the motions. This is the actual annexation to of the parcels. So That's what we're discussing now, if anybody got lost.
And I will just ask my same question I asked before. Now that we've adjusted the boundaries, if we approve this one, but for whatever reason the developer doesn't move forward with it, or we don't take the next steps and approve, we've now annexed it into the city of Kalispell. There's no turning back unless we,
The annexation and the zoning are intertwined. Can't really annex without putting a zone on it.
Okay.
Whatever zone it may be. And you have second reading. So it's not effective immediately. There's a second reading in 30 days. Depending on the second reading, it could even potentially go to a third reading. Just like trying to lay that out there. But so no, you have to put a zone on it when you annex it.
just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
2 weeks. 2 weeks.
2 weeks, yeah.
The 30 days was it, once you've reached a consensus, it doesn't become effective for 30 days, is what I'm saying.
Thank you.
Any discussion on the annexation?
I got scared for a minute because I thought I was zoning something, and and I'm not. So all right, cool.
Go ahead, Ms. Dahlman.
I typically, annexation is good for me because I don't want septic tanks out there. Because I don't feel that they're regulated and maintained to protect, our water source here. This is a tough one for me. I mean, that's the biggest factor for me. Thank you.
Well,
Other discussion? Mr. Graham?
Just kind of dovetailing, I guess, pointing out that would have happened with the growth policy vote.
I know,
Okay.
and I thought about that at great length, and I was willing to take that chance.
Okay.
I still am willing to take that chance.
But you're right. I mean,
I said typically.
Other discussion? Okay, I have a roll call vote.
Counselor Dowd,
Aye.
Counselor Dahlman,
Nope.
Counselor Fisher,
No.
Counselor Hunter,
Aye.
Counselor Nunley,
Aye.
Counselor Carlson,
Aye.
Counselor Gabrielle,
Aye.
Counselor Graham,
aye.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye, motion carries. Now we're on to ordinance 1921. This does require 2/3 vote to approve. And we are looking at the zoning. This will be the first reading. Page 199. We can sit here all night. We gotta get something on the table. Mr. Nunley?
I'll go ahead and go for it. Move to approve ordinance number 1921, an ordinance to amend section 27.02.010 official zoning map, City of Kalispell zoning ordinance, ordinance number 1677 by zoning certain real property described as parcel 2A of certificate of survey number 21853 located in the southeast quarter of the northwest corner of the northeast quarter of the southwest quarter and the west half of the southwest quarter of the northeast quarter and the west half of the northwest quarter of the southeast quarter of section 18, township 28 north, range 22 west, PMM, Flathead County, Montana, previously zoned county R2.5 rural residential to city R3 residential in accordance with the Kalispell Growth Policy Plan at 2035 and to provide an effective date.
Second.
Second, thank you, Ms. Gabriel. And can you bring Mr. Hunter up onto the screen so I can see when he gets his hand up, please? Thank you. Okay, discussion on the motion. Mr. Graham?
Thank you, Your Honor. Okay, so now I'm starting to get down to the nuts and bolts of the project here, and you know, I've said, you know, at the planning board meeting that I look at this project and I'm like, it feels like a good project. It just, to me, it feels like it's in a wrong spot. And since that meeting, I'm trying to go through and figure out why do I feel that way. And to tell you the truth, I've never had a project like this turn me in so many different directions. It's been a wild ride the last 2 months. So whether or not the traffic infrastructure right now is probably not the appropriate time really to talk about it, but I look at the traffic infrastructure as being a part of the backbone of this project. And I've said before, I see Silverbrook, R2, to the east. I picture this as being R2. I think that the R3 is too dense for this area because of the traffic infrastructure. If the traffic infrastructure were set up differently, then that probably would work. But I can't get to the R3 myself. So as far as I want to hear what the rest of the board council thinks first.
Mr. Nunley?
You know, Chad, to your comment, that's one of the things I've been struggling with myself. But then we hear that folks really want to, you know, affordable housing and down that $350,000 mark, you know, where we could. I would like to get it back to where it was when I got out of high school with, you know, $110,000 for a house. But that's not going to happen in our economy today. But one things that I keep looking at and why I keep going back and forth on this is lot size does tie to affordability in these situations. So if we truly are talking about affordability, it isn't driving down on necessarily just the construction of the materials used, but it is also those lot sizes, because lot sizes play a huge impact. So I'm with you. I'm going back and forth on this thing left and right and every which way, but that's kind of my thoughts on it.
So I guess what you would be saying then is that by going to an R2, it'd be a larger lot size. It would cost more for the lot size. And I don't disagree. From 100,000 feet, if you're looking at the discussion of affordability, I don't look at it from project to project. I look at it from our inventory as a whole in the city, because I absolutely know that market filtering is a thing. You can go and you can have higher price housing in one area where people move into that, they vacate out of something that's affordable for somebody else. And the higher up you start on that ladder, the more it goes down to where you're affecting more people down the line. So I've seen it happen. Look, I know this isn't what they're asking for. And that's why I'm really delicate on this about how to move forward on this. I can't get to the R3 myself, though. I see Silverbrook as an R2. You know, I know we got the little pocket developments in there that are R3, but they're so small. In order to make something like that go and work, you really kind of needed that density. So, I guess I'm gonna make a motion to go and amend this ordinance to strike. I don't know, where would you do that at? Would it be in the body itself, or is it down
The first whereas, I believe.
the first?
Whereas.
Yeah. Oh, right there. Yeah, the first whereas to strike R3 and place R2.
Second.
Second, motion second, discussion on the motion to amend.
Or anywhere else that's in there.
So the first whereas, if I can jump in there,
Okay.
reads as what the developers
Okay, got it.
Ask.
Yeah, I suppose it's
Section 1.
you've got to get
Yeah,
down
section
into our
one.
actual
Gotta get
action
down
in
into
section one.
Section 1, got it.
Yeah.
And also in the title.
Yes.
And the title.
Oh, yeah.
So as appropriate.
As appropriate.
Discussion on the motion to amend.
Thank you, Your Honor. I still have issues with this. I'm with Mr. Hunter on the farm ground we're losing. I'm with Ms. Dahlman on, I don't want to see septic tanks, but what I keep going back to with this and agreeing, at least with something less dense, is we are truly putting the size of a town of Eureka or Browning in this mile section of land with roads that suck. They suck. 3 blind spots. Somebody's going to die. Somebody's going to die on Highway 93. Whitefish stage could be 20 years down the road with the way money is kicked down the line for years. I just think it's so much. Anything I can do to make it less, I will try to support. I get development. I appreciate these people who are working locally for this developer. They're such good people. I know they'll try and do the right thing, but there's just too many safety issues to go with the R3 for this newcomer to this council. And I admire you all so much for what you've done for years. I think there's been a lot of smart growth here. But this, to me, a great development, wrong place. I wish it could be near Costco, the new Costco. I wish it could be an extension of something closer to town that made more sense. But I get there's only so many people wanting to sell. I certainly get why the Koenig sold. I get why Mr. Dammel, a developer, sold. I understand all these things, but it's just too much in a condensed, it's a Class B town. Its own basketball team, its own fire department, its own police department, in a small area on crap roads. Anything I can do to support less density, I'm gonna buy into.
Thank you, Your Honor. So I took my lunch hour today and I drove out there and I'm on 93 going the speed limit. People are flying by me. And when I went to turn right onto Tronstad, I pulled over as far as I could. And thank God the guy behind me was watching because he kind of slammed down his brakes. And I turned onto Tronstad. Those roads are crap. Oh, just like Mr. Fisher said, I love the idea of this project, but with the road conditions, I have a hard time with going with R3. So it's just a beautiful area. And again, I love the idea of the project, but I could have been killed today. So I appreciate all the comments made about the traffic.
And the
Thank
sad
you.
part, if she was killed, it would help with the traffic counts to get something done sooner. So I'm glad you're here, but that's a messed up thing too.
Welcome to Montana, Mr. Fisher. Mr. Nunley?
Thank you. I totally agree with you. I actually, a little over 30 years ago, I lived right on that first piece of property when you turn off of the highway onto Tronstad on the right side. Used to be a shop and they had a mobile home trailer there. I lived there for about a year and a half with a buddy out of high school. So I remember Tronstad even in the old days, and it was bad back then, and it hasn't improved. Since this project has come up over the last, since hearing about it, I've been driving it almost daily at all hours of day and night. And yes, this road is bad, and I wholeheartedly agree with all the residents here. This road is going to remain bad, and people are going to die even where it is today. And especially if we don't try to move where we have a developer that's willing to put money into it to fix it, that also concerns me too. Because if we do deny this, there is no fix to how bad that road is right now. And I'll tell you, I've watched people at that pork chop right on the highway. Not supposed to make a right-hand turn, doesn't stop them. They make left turns. They don't obey anything out there. I think I would like, if this project goes further any further on this, I would like to try to find a way MDT has to put that light in before first stick goes in the ground. Because it's already a problem.
Hence, this is going back to my previous statement about the amendment to the growth policy and the city, county working together. I know I have my rose-colored glasses on, but these are the reasons why that this was a difficult decision. It's all of the safety concerns. Thank you.
I think we look at traffic safety, and the interesting thing is that this subdivision right now is getting the focus because of the traffic. It will add to Tronstead. The interesting thing is I've gone out, I drive Tronstead 4 or 5 times a week, going out to a friend's house who's in a little county subdivision that didn't have to do a traffic impact study, that didn't do anything, that has added about 80 cars a day to Tronstead, roughly. This is where it comes back to what we have is a failure to plan at the county level. Because as we see all the development out, and we understand, look, I take exception, Mr. Hunter, one comment was, I think all the farmland out here, I can remember moving irrigation lines on a lot of it growing up. We had great farmland, but unfortunately what we're seeing is a lot of those families that own those farms, kids aren't coming back to farm. There's no way to hand them off, and there's no way to sell that farmland to somebody to have it economical to buy that land to then farm. So we're seeing it's kind of the easy way, land's being sold and developed. It's created an incredible amount of stress on the infrastructure that we have with no plan from the county really to put it into place. The only way that they can generate the money to do improvements is through the development with the taxes that are collected. Takes a little bit of vision at the county level. We'll see. One of these days we might get a visionary. But right now what we have is a subdivision coming in that's offered to pay for some of the improvements much needed that will never be paid for without the approval of a site. And it's got a little bit of an aside, but we're back on that density side, R2 versus R3. And, I think as I look at the developments, the subdivisions that we've approved in the past, Ms. Dahlman, you commented that, well, there's a lot of them out west, 2 mile, 3 mile, et cetera.
Those were hard decisions because of that.
Well, and for me, I can honestly say they're a little bit easier because they turn right onto a road that comes into the municipality. This is a subdivision that comes onto a road, then goes to a highway or to a secondary highway to come back into the city. So it is a little bit different from that perspective because it's not just the immediate access in, and it does create those traffic impairments. So, but I do look at what happened out at Silverbrook and understand the R2 zoning. That's one of those things that we look at is what's compatibility around it. But the other thing that we have to look at is long-term. And I don't know how many times I've harped to this council. I don't look at the next 4 years, 5 years. Trust me, I'm not looking at the next election cycle. I'm looking at 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, where the next generation can go, did they make a proper decision to get us at least to the point where we can keep going or keep moving? So, and we can argue about, and I appreciate the comment, trust me, preserving what we have. Because I can definitely say that what I had when I grew up here in the 80s, 70s and 80s was way different than what we have here today. Pluses and minuses. But as I get back to that density, I do struggle. I struggle with that R3 density. I just, because of what else has been done out on the north side. I also struggle with just putting the zoning in and then, what is it by right? There's the lawsuit that by right they can go to duplex. Which bill was that?
It's in litigation.
I know.
Is it 245?
I think it's 245.
Yeah.
245. So the other thing that frustrates me is we could go, I mean, we approve zoning across the highway on just straight zoning. But 245 can come through and every single family lot could have a duplex on it without a need for a traffic study. So I look at the damage that Helen has done to what we can take for input, what we can do with traffic studies, and I struggle with that. And I look at these and I start kind of questioning when we get to the plat, how do we try to alleviate some of those things from our ability as a municipality to manage our own infrastructure when the state's trying to do it for us and they've never run a city before? And they do a horrible job of running a state. Mr. Dowd?
Thank you, Your Honor. It's unusual for the council to keep speaking on to deliberate after the mayor has spoken, but there's a couple of us that still wanted to.
Yeah,
There were
Mr.
two
Hunter
cents.
wants to jump in, so.
Yeah, I'd like to, I'll throw out the minority report here and go a little bit of a different way. I'm really focused on community rather than city or county or whatever. And I heavily side usually with the landowner in most issues. Now, I know you're all landowners, but, so was the property owner. They're asking to be annexed in. They're asking for this certain zoning or whatever. And, if it was up to me, I would make every new development like R4 and just let the developer work with the community and figure out how dense they want to make it. I would love to see in this specific case, and I know this is not my job to be speaking to the developer or the community, I'd like to see something that from the community side was larger lots, and then it went to smaller lots as it got further away so that it wasn't such an impact directly on the neighboring houses. But, I would love for the community to figure this out. But I do really respect the landowners, viewpoint, and they're asking for a certain zone because they have certain plans in mind or whatever. And, I usually side with them. In this case, there's a lot of friction between the community and the landowners. So this has been the first development that I've ever even had to sit back and think about all of the issues brought forth, really. This is very hard for me, and I don't think I can support a zone that is more restrictive than the owner asked for. And I know I'm a minority on this council's, as you can tell by the comments that were made, but that's just the way I feel.
Mr. Hunter?
Thank you, Your Honor. I actually, I can't quite separate the zoning from the preliminary plat. To me, they go together, and so I'll be kind of addressing both of them together. But actually, before I do kind of touch on some of my thoughts on this, I do have some additional questions for staff, if that would be okay.
Yeah, please.
Okay. One was the question raised that wasn't answered last time that I believe is with the intersection with Highway 93, we learned at the last meeting that there would be a left turn lane put in place at that intersection. And then there was the comment made about an acceleration lane. I did, when I drove by there, I looked at that and I was like, well, that's a good point that, folks turning left onto Highway 93, that traffic's moving fast without an acceleration lane. That could create some problems. So has that been looked at? What's staff's response on that?
No, that has not been looked at by staff. It has been, the whole intersection was looked at by MDT. And I'm not sure it would, warrant an acceleration lane. You would, with full build out, have a signal there. And so, no, I guess the short answer is no, that has not been looked at.
Okay. And then, we talked about the snow plowing last time, but I didn't ask specifically regarding the snow drifts, which for, and there was a comment that this was a problem in Silverbrook. And I haven't been out in those areas in the wintertime to see the snowdrift issues, but I was wondering if you could comment on kind of plowing, specifically with regards to addressing snowdrift. The fact that, as has been pointed out, it's open to the east there. Does do snowdrifts present a problem in terms of plowing in the wintertime and making sure folks can get out safely?
Yeah. This is Susie Turner, the Public Works Director, just in case anybody didn't know who I am. Thought I would do an introduction. Snow plowing out in this area, we are well aware of the snow drifting that is a potential out there. We have now serviced Silverbrook since it's been developed, and we've gone through phases of extreme snow drifting to minor snow drifting. We have an extremely dedicated staff that are out there plowing the snow till midnight sometimes and coming back at 4 o'clock in the morning. We have a great collaborative working relationship with the county, and we work with them all the time on certain roads to ensure that the public has access to their roads for emergency purposes. So I'm not nervous about the snow drifting. There will be snow drifting through these areas. We've also talked about potentially putting up some snow fences in the area as a part and through the phased development. We've learned a few things with Silverbrook through these areas, but not only Silverbrook, even in section 35 over there in those areas too. So we've learned a few things that we've got in our toolbox now to help us deal with some of the heavy winter storms that we have, once or twice a year. And some winters are worse than other winters. Sometimes we don't even have enough snow to get the heavy drifting, but we have the equipment, we have the staff, and we have the dedication to work through, build out in these community areas.
Thank you. And then last question on this, in terms of the water ponding on the field and kind of that hydrology, the water flow, the concerns about where that water will go with more impervious surface and kind of pushing out water. I know we have requirements with our developments in terms of stormwater runoff. Have we factored in the amount of water this property receives and kind of has that standing water, and feel confident that this will not affect neighboring properties in terms of the hydrology and the flow of that water?
Yeah, a standard requirement for any development is that they have to match the historic off-flow rate, so they can't exceed more with the development, more off-flow than was there historically. And they also have to accept historic on-flow. Both the pictures that were presented tonight appear to be a rain on snow event, and we do see that throughout our area. Some of the worst scenarios are when we have a rain on snow event and the water can't soak into the ground. But most of that water appeared to be on the Tronstad Meadows area. And so they're going to be required to retain or detain water to that historic flow rate and volume. And they are anticipating that with the design of the development. At this point, we don't have an engineering design submitted. We have conceptual designs, and as those come together, the city staff is required to verify that those requirements are being met.
Okay, thank you. Well, like I said, I can't quite separate the plat and the zoning. They're tied together, so my comments are going to address both of them. I do have some somewhat extensive thoughts on this. And I want to start with the traffic. I think that's obviously the big issue with this proposal. And I recognize, I think there are traffic issues with Tronstad and with the intersection of 93 and Whitefish. And I think folks have done a good job in pointing that out. And we, and let me preface this, that I'm kind of of two minds on this, and you'll see that as I go through my comments. I recognize the contradiction in my thoughts here. But we as a city face a problem in that, we're reliant on MDOT and the county as partners. MDOT has triggers, but they trigger late after there's development, and there's concern, as we've seen as development, where the improvements don't come when they should. They come after there's already some development and impact, and that's a problem. And the county doesn't have any triggers, and they don't invest in their infrastructure, and that's a major problem. But at the same time, that's a problem with throughout the city, throughout any we've come across this before. I think there's argument to be made that this is worse than some of the others we've seen. But Rose Crossing, that road has that dangerous curve down by the river that was an issue. And we had the issue with 2 Mile, to a lesser extent 3 Mile and 4 Mile. I think are issues with this kind of county versus city, and so I'm not sure what to do about that, because it's a problem. I recognize it's a problem, but at the same time, we can't shut down development in the city. I know a lot of people would like us to, but I'm a big believer that growth doesn't stop if we shut down development. I believe that growth drives development, not the other way around. And if you do shut down development, then you have what we've seen with not enough development, which is increasing housing prices, inability to hire teachers, fighters, police, and other folks we need in our community because they can't afford the housing. We have an increasing homelessness crisis, and so on. So we're bit in a bind. And I don't have an answer for that. And I apologize for that. It's a tough situation that I don't know what to do with. But at the same time, I do see the traffic situation somewhat as a short-term problem, whereas, as I pointed out in my previous comments, the development decisions we make now are a long-term decision. They're fixed for the next 100 years or more, whereas the traffic issue, is not short-term in months, it's more years, and that's a problem. But it's not the long-term, like the development decisions we make today are, fixed for, like I said, 100 years or more. So that's one part of the issue, and I don't have an answer for it, but I do recognize the problem. The other issue, and I'll get this kind of gets into my unique perspective on some of these issues, is one of the things I see as a major traffic issue as well is this style of development pattern, which is why I have a real hard time with the zoning, because I actually don't support the zoning categorizations that we have in general. My vision for planning and development would actually abandon our zoning categories altogether and kind of create a whole different way of looking at it. But the issue is creating this development where you load all this housing development onto Highway 93, and all the commercial is concentrated in Hutton Ranch, and unfortunately now spreading north of Reserve, this kind of big box, single story development that everybody drives to. And yet you still maintain Highway 93, MDOT does, as this 60, 70 mile per hour road. To me, you're creating an absolute disaster in terms of congestion and traffic and spaces that people do not want to be in, because everybody's going to be leaving their little housing development and getting on the same roads to go to the same places, and it just doesn't work. And I've mentioned before, 93, either needs to be like the bypass, where it's limited entry and exit, high-speed development, high-speed road with sound barriers, no development on it, or it needs to be an urban boulevard. where the development is on it, you have on-street parking, you have speeds of less than 40 miles per hour, and it's a space that people want to be in. You have mixed-use development. People can walk, bike, and get to their destinations by alternatives other than a vehicle. And that makes a much more a better space. And that's not the kind of development we're seeing going along 93, and that really bothers me and is something I'm very much opposed to. And I believe in developing. We hear a lot about complete streets. Those are streets that are not just built for vehicles, but also for bicycles, for pedestrians in mind. And there's kind of a whole movement around complete streets. Well, I also believe in complete neighborhoods that are also pedestrian friendly, but are mixed use development. As I said, people can walk or bike to meet their needs, not only for housing, but for commercial use, for jobs and so forth. And we're not seeing it. In fact, this development is a perfect example of the exact opposite of single family only development. And so to get into the housing, we have this kind of single family development, as I mentioned in my previous comments, that single family only development,
Mr. Hunter?
Yeah.
We're trying to go between R3 and R2. I know where you're, I know your passions, but we've got an applicant with a request in front of us, and we have an amendment to go from R3 to R2.
Well, I'm not going to support either R3 or R2, and because I tie it specifically with plat as well, and I'm trying to explain kind of why I don't support that zoning categorization and kind of single family only on this scale. It's one thing when it's a smaller development, but when it's 110 acres of nearly 400 units and it's only single family, I don't support that. And so I'm making my case for why I don't support R3 or R2 or this plat.
Got it. Okay.
So, as I was saying, the single family only development is the most inefficient form of.
Actually, Mr. Hunter, I mean, it's 9:30. I know where you're at. I've got Miss Gabriel with her hand up. I'm just trying to, you don't support either, so I get it. And it sounds more like what we're addressing would be something that we would address when we look at 382 with your comments now. Is that correct?
Well, I'm not sure what you mean by that, but I can hold on. I don't know if we're going to get to the plat discussion, and so and in my mind, I'm tying them together, and so I want to explain that. Basically, I can summarize that. I want to see more housing diversity here, and that gets to the affordability issue, because Mr. Graham is right that supply is the issue. There's no affordability built into this proposal. The way you get affordability is supply, but this is actually minimizing supply by doubling down on single family only housing. If you want affordability, you have to have, especially in this market with 7% interest rates, you have to have rental units involved. And in terms of traffic, if you incorporate some multifamily, you get to that trigger for MDOT for the light quicker. If you build out the multifamily at the beginning of phase one, and you can hit that trigger faster to get that traffic, the road improvements and light sooner. And so anyways, I understand that there's in terms of the traffic and the higher density, so that's where I'm of two minds, but I just don't support development of this scale, 110 acres, 400 units, and you don't see a lick of housing diversity in it, nor do you see any kind of built-in system where you have ability to get some of your commercial or employment needs met within a walking and biking distance. So I kind of had more to say on that, but I understand the concern about time, so I will just leave it at that.
Okay, I appreciate it. Ms. Gabriel?
Thank you, Your Honor. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I have struggled with this as well, and I've been out and I've driven this road for the 27 years I've lived here, going out to that part of the valley, and drove it again a couple times here in the last couple of weeks. Tronstead is not a great road. However, people sold this land, and this developer group bought it. So they've now come before us with a proposal. I don't think it's our job to tell them how to change their proposal. We either approve it or we don't. And I can only imagine the outrage from the neighbors if multifamily housing was part of this development and there were even more people going in to that property. So I don't know why we're even having that discussion. We're here to discuss this developer's proposal. Development is going to happen there, and it's going to happen with out as much scrutiny if it's in the county than if it is coming through the city. The developer is paying for many improvements that we would not get if it was through the county. I don't like the R3 either, but I think it could be much worse with a bunch of septics, duplexes, and fourplexes. I'm not going to try to tell the developer how to change their plat. We need to either approve it or we don't. But we really should not be trying to change it for them while we're having discussion on it. I think that's very inappropriate. I also feel like we have plenty of multifamily housing being built out right now. And I think there are a number of people that would like to buy their first home. Nobody's saying this is affordable. I have not heard that come out of the developer. And I don't think anyone thinks this is going to be affordable housing, but it's not going to be high-end luxury housing either. It's what people are going to buy when they're trying to buy a home. I know there are people that disagree with me. This has been hard. I have friends that own property out there directly across from this piece, and I know others who live in the area. I know everyone is incredibly passionate, and it's a terrible spot to be in. But again, I'm just going to go back to it's not my job or anyone else's job on this council to tell this developer to change their proposal. If they want to do that, fine, let them come forward. But I don't think we should be throwing amendments out there and telling them what we think they should do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gabriel. Other discussion? Remember, we do have the amendment, motion to amend ordinance 1921, reference from R3 to R2. Any other discussion on the amendment? Now have a roll call vote.
Counselor Dowd,
No.
Counselor Dahlman,
No.
Counselor Fisher,
No.
Counselor Hunter, Counselor Nunnally,
No.
Counselor Carlson,
No.
Counselor Gabrielle,
No.
Counselor Graham,
Aye.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye. Motion fails. Back to R3 as originally written in the ordinance. Mr. Graham?
Thank you, Your Honor. So I'll be voting no on the zoning for that matter of the failure of the amendment. Like I said, the thing is at R2 when it comes to the traffic infrastructure surrounding kind of cradling this development, I disagree. I think it's a appropriate to go through and say, you know, that from what we see, put protections in place and stuff, and try to blend what's being asked for and what's there. You know, I wasn't going to get into traffic discussion because this is zoning. I'm going to get more into the traffic discussion when we get into preliminary plat. So I won't belabor that point, but I just wanted to say it, you know, for the lack of the passage of the R2, I'm going to vote no on the zoning.
Other discussion on the original motion on the ordinance? Have a roll call vote.
Counselor Dowd,
Aye.
Counselor Dahlman,
No.
Counselor Fisher,
No.
Counselor Hunter.
No.
That was a no, right?
Is that a
Time
no,
hearing.
Mr. Hunter?
Counselor Hunter, what was that vote? We couldn't quite hear.
Sorry.
Like a garble.
Didn't help.
Garbled.
No.
Thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
Counselor Nunley,
Yes.
Counselor Carlson,
Aye.
Counselor Gabrielle,
Aye.
Counselor Graham,
No.
and Mayor Johnson.
No. Motion failed. So at that point, we don't even go to the plat, do we?
It is a good question.
Because there,
I think we-
Point, it's annexed but not zoned.
it's annexed but no zone, so you can't really do a plat with no zone because the plat has to be compliant with the zoning, and there is no zoning at this point.
Do we have to stay here until we come up with a zone?
No, it fails.
It fails, the applicant, I guess one thing is there's, I guess state law also requires us to consider a preliminary plat within a certain time frame, which is on the table, but given the zoning didn't pass, there's some gray area there.
Different territory for us. We're like whitefish now, God forbid. Call John, he'll know.
Jeez.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you would consider the plat if it doesn't have zoning on it, and like we said earlier, if you don't have a zoning, the annexation didn't happen, so.
Right. Okay. So I believe we move on to the next item, item 2, correct? Okay. We're going to move on to the next item, Parkland Meadows Phase 1 Final Plat and Subdivision Improvement Agreement. This item considers final plat and agreement approval of a 13.2 acre subdivision located near the northeast intersection of Airport Road and Cemetery Road.
Your Honor, can we wait till the chamber clears?
Yeah, there's no plat to consider because there's no zone.
Thank you for the long
Right.
It's just 3 hours of voice.
Okay, so staff presentation.
Mayor and council, you have a final plat, and I'll go ahead and turn it over to PJ Sorensen for the staff report.
All right, thank you, Mayor, Council. Jacola Engineering has submitted a request on behalf of Parkland Meadows Property LLC for final plat approval of Parkland Meadows Phase 1. And the subdivision contains 3 commercial lots, 3 multifamily lots, and utility lots on approximately 13.2 acres. The property is located near the northeast corner of the intersection of Airport Road and Cemetery Road. The City Council approved the plan unit development and the preliminary plat with 41 conditions in October of 2021. This is showing the conceptual plan for the PUD, showing the apartment buildings, the two commercial areas. We're at the northwest corner and down at the southeast corner. Phase 1 is generally in this area. And if you've been out there, you notice that those two buildings right here are under construction. All infrastructure has been installed and accepted or bonded for, and all conditions of approval have been addressed. Subdivision improvement agreement, the amount of $366,724.36, secured by a bond, is included for the council's consideration. With that, staff would recommend that the City Council approve the final plat for Parkland Meadows Phase 1, as well as the subdivision improvement agreement, and be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff?
Can you show us the phase 1 area again? Yeah, or is this it right here?
This is the Phase 1 plat right here. So you've got the 3 commercial lots, and then there's 3 multifamily lots. There's one building going on here and one building there and multiple ones there. And going back, this follows the PUD layout with the 2 buildings under construction, the 3 buildings that will be under construction in the commercial area in that area in the northwest.
Okay, so everything except for that middle piece and the piece to the east.
Yeah, well, from south of this line roughly here and up around this way.
Okay.
And up through there, except for a utility lot was included in phase 1 up over there. So there's a sewer lift station down here, and this was a storm drainage site. And again, just, yeah, this is the boundary. South of that was not being final platted at this point.
Okay, appreciate it, thanks.
Any other questions for staff?
Your Honor.
Yeah, Mr. Hunter?
Yeah, thank you. Just real quick, just, I guess, a point of confusion for me. I thought the final plat came in after, all the infrastructure was in, but before development occurred, but there's obviously development already happening. Obviously, I have some misunderstanding there. So there's development can occur before the final plat is approved?
So the general rule in the subdivision regulations is that you can't get a building permit until final plat. However, in a PUD, you have deviations from the general standards. In this particular case, there was a deviation that allowed them to start construction on the buildings. It was the same developer. It was going to be the same owner. So they were installing the infrastructure and doing the construction of the buildings at the same time. So that's something that we've done in a number of the PUDs that are out there because of the PUD process.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Any public comment related to the Phase 1 final plat and subdivision improvement agreement for Parkland Meadows? Seeing none, look to council for a motion. Mr. Graham?
Thank you, Your Honor. I move that the Kalispell City Council approve the final plat for Parkland Meadows Phase 1 as well as the subdivision improvement agreement.
Second.
Second.
Second. Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Any discussion on the motion? Have a roll call vote.
Counselor Dowd?
Aye.
Counselor Dahlman?
Aye.
Counselor Fisher?
Aye.
Counselor Hunter?
Aye.
Counselor Nunley?
Aye.
Counselor Carlson?
Aye.
Counselor Gabrielle?
Aye.
Counselor Graham?
Aye.
Mayor Johnson?
Aye, motion carries. Next item, Resolution 6202, Peterson Heritage Park easement request. This item considers entering an agreement for the sale of an easement through Heritage Park to allow access to private property at 375 College Avenue.
Hey, Mayor and Council, you may recall I had a work session on this a couple months ago, and I'll turn it over to PJ to give you a brief summary about how it's come together.
All right, thank you, Mayor, Council. In November of 23, the council held a work session regarding property at 375 College Avenue, which is adjacent to Heritage Park, which is a city-owned park. At the time, it was owned by the Youngs, but it's since been purchased by Jeremy Peterson. There is a trailer and old storage building on the property, but is essentially vacant and without immediate access to either a street or city services. He reached out to the city regarding access, which was the primary topic of the November work session. As shown on the screen, the property is about half a block off of College Avenue. College Avenue comes down right here, and that property sits back a little bit to the west. Although there is a little bit of an extension of College Avenue that brings the public street a little bit closer. However, there's also a portion of Heritage Park that separates the property from the street, so the property does not have any legal access to the street. He plans to build a single-family home, which would be a permitted use under the R3 residential zoning of the property. This image is from the appraisal, which established the value as $32,000. It should be noted that the appraisal was prepared as a boundary line adjustment and fee simple purchase of the property, but the sales price would be the same under either scenario. As part of the building permit review, design details including, but not limited to, width of the driveway, paving standards, fire access and protection, storm drainage, and utility connections would be reviewed. And any use of the property would need to be compliant with any applicable zoning and subdivision regulations. At the work session, the council was amenable to move forward with the proposed sale of a non-exclusive access and utility service easement, provided that Mr. Peterson would be responsible for preparing the easement document and any necessary surveying, as well as any other costs associated with the sale of the easement and development of the site. Since that time, he has prepared the necessary documents and is requesting that the city move forward with the sale of the easement. Consistent with the council direction of the work session, any remaining costs associated with the sale would also be paid by Mr. Peterson. It's just a couple shots from the property. First of all, looking west into the park from the end of College. This is the image looking east from the park towards College Avenue. With that, it's recommended that the Kalispell City Council direct the city manager to enter into an agreement sale of the easement, and be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff? Mr. Hunter? Ms. Gabriel?
Not for me.
No questions.
The only, we reviewed this a year ago?
November.
In November, it
Yeah,
seems like a
November
year ago. I
23.
mean, we've had long meetings, so, I mean, this isn't new.
Yep.
This all looks good, so, I mean, I'm supportive of this, so. Any other questions for staff? Public comment on Resolution 6202?
So I'm Jeremy Peterson, 375 College Avenue, and staff, we worked through an odd situation here, and intent would be to put a single family residence there and get it on a tax roll. Right now, I think the taxes are like around $300 for a year, so 4,000 sounds better probably. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other public comment? Oh, Mr. Roundtree, he's
Yeah.
opposed to it, I know it.
Walter Roundtree. I was going to say the same thing as him. Make that property start filling up the coffers of the city. I'd like to say that Heritage Park really isn't probably bringing a whole lot of joy to the people of Kalispell right now. It's pretty good wetlands and bird habitat, and I'd say take us $4,000 every year and build 10 feet of really nice path going down through there. Maybe halfway down, put a bench with a interpretive sign there about bird habitat and wetlands. After 20 years, you really have a nice little park there.
Thank you, Mr. Roundtree. There is a lot of riparian area in there, though.
Nice working.
Is there no other public comment? Look to council for a motion. Mr. Nunley?
Thank you, Your Honor. I make a motion to approve Resolution 6202, a resolution approving the sale of an easement on the city-owned property in Heritage Park in order to allow the development of landlocked parcel of land located at 375 College Avenue.
Second.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Carlson. We got Ms. Gabriel's next. But any discussion on the motion? Have a roll call vote?
Your Honor.
Mr. Hunter?
Yeah, just reiterate my position, same thing when this came up last year, which is, this is an insignificant amount of money for the city. It's insignificant addition to the housing supply, being one housing unit. There are kids in the neighborhood who play in this back in these woods, and there's wildlife that uses it. Having a couple of cars coming in and out of there every day would, be some disturbance to that. But the bigger issue for me is just the precedence that it sets. I see no reason for the city to do this, but folks who live next to Woodland Park or Lawrence Park now see that the city is willing to, give up some little bit of sliver to benefit a single landowner with no real benefit to the city. And I just I don't like the precedent of that, and I don't think it's a good policy, so I will be opposing it.
Okay. Any other discussion on the motion? Let's have a roll call vote.
Counselor Dowd,
Aye.
Counselor Dahlman,
Aye.
Counselor Fisher,
Aye.
Counselor Hunter,
No.
Counselor Nunley,
Aye.
Counselor Carlson,
Aye.
Counselor Gabrielle,
Aye.
Counselor Graham,
Aye.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye, motion carries. Resolution 6203, Special Street Maintenance Assessment Increase. This item considers a resolution to increase the assessment rate.
I'll go ahead and turn it over to Susie Turner for the staff report.
Yes, good evening, Your Honor and council members. Before council tonight is the recommendation to amend the special street maintenance assessment rate with 7 years of annual increases and a cost index increase starting in fiscal year 32. The last increase for special streets fund was in 2018. Since then, inflation of materials, salaries, and equipment have risen significantly, prompting the proposed assessment increase to sustain the fund's operations. For example, the cost of city mill and overlays since 2018 has increased by 49%, and equipment costs have increased between 46 and 67%, depending on the type of equipment that we're required to purchase and replace. The assessment supports the generation of sufficient revenues in order to maintain the current quality of service for routine street and maintenance operations. This includes your winter plowing, de-icing, street sweeping, potholing roads, vegetative control, road grading, leaf collection, just to name a few of our tasks that we perform in the street maintenance fund. It also allows the city to construct some limited capital projects in the upcoming years, including equipment housing and de-icing tanks placed in satellite location, and some necessary traffic updates to controls and signals. The assessment increase allows us to uphold the equipment replacement schedule necessary to ensure our operational readiness for required services, and the increase sustains the pavement preservation program for roads and alleys, allowing us to complete the necessary improvements to maintain the life cycles of our fair to good roads and repairing our poor and very poor roads. The assessment increase takes into consideration funding from the TIF districts, which bridges our gap of our current expenditures and allows a very gradual increase to achieve those same levels of service for our pavement preservation programs. And finally, the increase does ensure we are achieving our financial policy target, ensuring year-end balance equivalent to 4 months of operational expenditures. Staff presented on the operational maintenance and the funding management during 2 work sessions with council in February and April of this year. Public participation efforts, including work session, outreach, and a public hearing, were conducted regarding the assessment increase, and to date, we have not received any public comment. And that concludes my really quick review, since we've been through everything several times with council, but I'd be happy to answer any questions council might have.
Any questions for staff? Mr. Hunter? Nope, no hand. Any public comment in Resolution 6203? Where'd everyone go? Motion? Mr. Dowd?
You know I want to do it, right?
I know you want to do it.
Resolution number 6203, a resolution to adopt an increase in assessments on real property within the city of Kalispell for the cost of the street maintenance district, special maintenance district number 1.
Second.
Second, thank you, Ms. Carlson. Discussion on the motion.
Everybody likes their potholes filled. That's it.
Okay. I think the only comment assessment, it is a tax. TBID, everything, wherever you have an assessment, we're collecting money from the property owner for whatever purpose. It's flat rate, whatever, it's a tax. So, but like you said, I appreciate what this fund does. Nobody wants the potholes. We want our sidewalks, roads, bike paths.
The problem with that is there's so many different parts of the city that are county or state that we get blamed for all the ones that aren't done.
That's right. And I have just particularly enjoyed the fact that the Libertarian Senate candidate was the one who voted or made the motion to increase taxes.
I never actually said I move or motion.
Is there any other legitimate discussion?
No.
Can I have a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Dowd,
Aye.
Counselor Dahlman,
Aye.
Counselor Fisher,
Aye.
Counselor Hunter,
Aye.
Counselor Nunley,
Aye.
Counselor Carlson,
Aye.
Counselor Gabrielle,
Aye.
Counselor Graham,
Aye.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye, motion carries. Next item. Working through my sandwich. Oh, great. Motion to authorize limited expenditure of funds within the fiscal year 2025 preliminary budget and call for a public hearing. This is our continuing resolution. from the budget that we approved, well, we reviewed.
Correct, yep, do this every year. As you said, it's akin to continuing resolution until the final budget is adopted in August. So just looking for motion to authorize the expenditure of funds from fiscal year 25 necessary for day-to-day operations and schedule a public hearing for July 1. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff?
I believe this is where the federal government stays in its budget, right? In this continual resolution?
It's, yeah. It has become the standard position of our
Since
federal government.
1986, by the
To
way.
be in a continuing resolution. We do pass a budget and it's balanced. Any public comment on the continuing resolution? Look to council for a motion.
I unfortunately already have this one up, so if you want me to
You're
read
gonna
it,
do it
I'll
again?
read it.
Do it.
Oh, this is awesome. I'm gonna send these things to Steve and John.
Your Honor, I move to authorize the expenditure of funds from the fiscal year 2025 preliminary budget necessary for day-to-day operations of the city and schedule a public hearing for Monday, July 1st, 2024.
Second.
Second.
Second. Ms. Gabriel, thank you. Discussion on the motion. Have a roll call vote.
Counselor Dowd,
Aye.
Counselor Dahlman,
Aye.
Counselor Fisher,
Aye.
Counselor Hunter,
Aye.
Counselor Nunley,
Aye.
Counselor Carlson,
Aye.
Counselor Gabrielle,
Aye.
Counselor Graham,
Aye.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye, motion carries. Resolution 6204, non-union salary adjustment. This resolution considers adopting an updated 20-step pay matrix and the annual step increase for eligible employees.
Yes, Mayor and Council, what you have before you is market-based process for a 20-step matrix using 5 larger and 5 smaller cities. The recommendation includes a 4% base adjustment and 4 new positions based off of previous years, and happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Graham?
Thank you, Your Honor. I think everybody knows where I'm going with this, but my question is in Exhibit A. I mean, I'm reading the. I just want to make sure I'm correct on this. Section 1, the salaries and compensation of city-appointed officers. I believe that's probably us.
Mr. Russell anticipated your question.
Absolutely, right?
Prepped me on what to say. He said that this does not contemplate council, but that you may change it so that it does, and he would encourage you to do so.
Okay, cool. Because I didn't see it down in the exhibit where it had anything listing out mayor or council or anything, so I wanted to make sure that's so. How do we go about that? Just amending it to say in section 1 that it excludes elected officers.
I don't think you change.
That
Right now, it does not contemplate council.
Yes, the city manager's actually proposing that we put ourselves on this schedule.
Oh, got it. Yes, he would. He has. Got it. Okay. So nothing needs to be done.
Correct.
Any other discussion?
Your Honor,
Yes?
I don't know that tonight is the night to do it, and maybe this isn't the year to do it, but I do think we need to review this at some point.
Okay.
With elected officials, in other words. I just think we need to discuss it. There's enough new people on where it might be worthy of having a discussion and look at it from some different ways.
Okay.
Can we make that be a public hearing?
Well, this is a question for, well, this is questions for staff and got it, okay. Any public comment? Okay, now I'll get to a motion and then we can get to comments. Discussion.
I'm not doing this.
Mr. Graham.
Yeah, we're not in there, so I'll do it. I move resolution number 6204, a resolution adjusting the salary and compensation of the city officials, supervisors, and all other non-union employees pursuant to Title 7, Chapter 4, Part 42, MCA, commencing on the date indicated herein.
Second.
Second, thank you, Mr. Nunley. Discussion on the motion now. Now's a great time to. I just can't believe I get paid to read 1,100-page council packet on a weekend.
Right.
Oh, you had talked about it before.
Tonight's not the night for me.
Right.
On anything.
It makes that $200 every 2 weeks well worth it.
Any other discussion? Okay, have a roll call vote.
Counselor Dowd,
Aye.
Counselor Dahlman,
Aye.
Counselor Fisher,
Aye.
Counselor Hunter,
Aye.
Counselor Nunley,
Aye.
Counselor Carlson,
Aye.
Counselor Gabrielle,
Aye.
Counselor Graham,
Aye.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye, motion carries. Next item, thrown in after the work session on Monday, Resolution 6205, acquisition of equipment for short-term treatment of PFAS. This resolution authorizes exempting the acquisition and implementation of water well treatment equipment from bidding and advertising requirements to allow a condensed time frame.
Yeah, Mayor Council, and once again, I'll turn it over to Susie Turner for a staff report.
Yes, Your Honor and council members, as part of the city's response to the detection of PFAS at the Grandview wells, we are working towards the installation of a treatment unit prior to the peak water demand season this year. Due to the short time frame, typical bidding and procurement process cannot be accomplished. As such, state law and city procurement policies provide an alternate delivery process to these requirements. If approved by a 3/4 vote of council members present at the council meeting, in order to meet the needs of to best serve the public interest. The recommended resolution before council is to identify the current comprised time frame to address the public health concern and the need to exempt the purchase and installation of a short-term treatment equipment from the bidding and advertising requirements. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions on the proposed resolution.
Any questions for staff? Nope. You're scratching. Okay.
Yeah, I was just.
Okay. Any public comment? Motion.
Thank you, Your Honor. I move resolution number 6205, a resolution declaring an emergency and authorizing the Public Works Department to proceed without advertisement or bidding with the immediate acquisition of equipment for the short-term treatment of PFAS at the Grandview well source.
Second.
Second, thank you, Mr. Hunter. It was like they were all looking, where do I read the word second? Appreciate you chiming in there. Any discussion on the motion? Mr. Dowd.
Once again, dissenting view, according probably from everybody else here, is I think we're in the monitoring phase right now. I think with even 2 tests on the well, I don't feel comfortable expending money yet until we have a pattern. So that's just my view, and I know that people have wildly different views than me, but I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Well, I know you drink your water through a mask. Because that was so effective before. Any other discussion? Mr. Hunter?
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. I'll just say that, there's a great amount of concern in the community over this issue. It will be a considerable amount of time before we go through the process of figuring out other alternatives to our water supply and getting these chemicals out of there. And so I absolutely think this is an appropriate step to take emergency action to remove the chemicals from the water to the best extent we can. And I think the public would very much support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hunter. Mr. Fisher.
Your Honor, I originally had a different view on this, but after sleeping on Ms. Gabriel's comments and Mr. Hunter's, correct, there's nothing more important than what we do than our public's water, and I support this wholeheartedly.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Because we need your vote. We need 7 out of 9, so I'm assuming, there might be another dissent.
There's only one of me.
There's only one of you said, thankfully. I'll echo this. I mean, there's certain things that, given the emergence of PFAS, we know that the testing, and I understand Mr. Dowd too, don't necessarily make a trend, but there's also that saying where there's smoke, there's fire. And when we look at what is that source, we don't know if it's within the wellhead, we don't know if it's within the aquifer, we don't know where it's coming from. And, contrary to some opinion, we do care where it's coming from. The problem is we have such limited resources. I don't care where it's coming from. That doesn't get rid of it. We have to figure out how do we solve the problem and make sure that it's not within the water to those levels that EPA has established, which to me, I still question that I think it's a ridiculously small amount. But I'm not a scientist. Never could pass the test. So I support doing this because I think confidence in the water supply is one of those key things. Without that, we should all just be in the county with our own wells that have PFAS in it that we just don't know about, and we just blissfully drink and shove everything into the septic system. So I'll support this. But like you originally, I was, that's a lot of money. But that is the price that we have to pay to maintain the system. So, any other discussion? A roll call vote.
Counselor Dowd?
No.
Counselor Dahlman?
Aye.
Counselor Fisher?
Aye.
Counselor Hunter?
Aye.
Counselor Nunley?
Aye.
Counselor Carlson?
Aye.
Counselor Gabrielle?
Aye.
Counselor Graham?
Aye.
Mayor Johnson?
Aye. Motion carries. And I cannot wait for the online trolls to. Okay. We're down at the end. City manager report.
Yes, Mayor and Council, not a lot for me, other than we do have a work session next week on Safe Streets for All. So it's been a lengthy community planning process here regarding the Main Street Safety Action Plan. And also have a brief update here from Susie. So on the
Yes,
PFAS.
the city manager asked me to give a brief update of where we are in our action plan to PFAS. Since we met last Monday, we are working diligently to review 2 potential short-term treatment options. We've met with a couple of those firms, and we're just going through some of the particulars on what that means, or what those treatment units mean for us in regards to our water quality, our facility, the footprint, how we can connect those to the facility, the flow. So there's just a lot of engineering aspects we still have to work through, but we've kind of limited it down to 2 options. And I'll give another brief update to council in the upcoming weeks as we move further through this process as a part of that. We are meeting with DEQ tomorrow to review the logistics of receiving the funding for the short-term treatment units and the process for engineering review. Because it is a public water supply, it's anything new that we add to the treatment and delivery of water, it has to be reviewed and approved by DEQ. So that is another process that we do have to go through. Once we've received that necessary information from our treatment units of interest, and with this adoption of the resolution to exempt the bidding process, our next steps will be to select the treatment units, get DEQ's approval of the install, order piping and equipment to retrofit the existing well facility, and work with Flathead Community College to get approval for temporary use of their property, because I anticipate the units are going to be bigger than just our small footprint that we have right now for the Grandview. We are also looking at developing sampling plans, so we need to order some bottles for our next sampling round in July, so we're working through that. And finally, our engineers are continually working through the PER process for the long-term treatment process, or removal of our long-term projects to develop new source water wells to replace our current wells that are receiving our DTEC. So just kind of working through all that. That's my summary. I'll have more updates as we get further along on the short-term treatment process.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Council, actually, real quick, 2 things from comments tonight. Quail Meadows, the water there, I'm sure engineering's looking at that.
Yeah, we, excuse me, we did review that during development. So as part of our review process, one of the items that wasn't clear on the engineering was the flow outside of the development. So they didn't have access to that property. They provided some general topo lines, and it wasn't apparent in the engineering review that flow from that site actually came into Quail Meadows. And then it was brought up by, I think, Mr. Shaw, that there's an issue here. And so we did meet with the engineer on site and developed a plan to accept that onflow from the adjacent property and develop that drainage parcels to meet the city standards. So it wasn't caught up front, it was caught during construction, and it does meet the city requirements.
Okay, thank you. And then, can someone get a hold of Mr. Oldenburg and have him let his 97-year-old former neighbor that we're not removing the bins from the alley? I think her impression with the billing was she was gonna have to do a rollout, but let her reassure her that she still has the collection in the alley, just to, okay. All right, I just want to grab those 2 real quick from public comment. Council, anything from council to report? Mr. Dowd?
Yeah, this is great because everybody will hear the vote, but they won't hear the explanation, which is great. But for the 4 people out there, I have yet to vote for an emergency measure before this council. I think you get the worst of government in anytime it declares an emergency. And the other thing I don't like about this is pulling it out of the normal budgeting process. So I do understand the other side of the issue, but I'm not comfortable voting for it. So that's why I voted against the emergency treatment.
Anything else from council?
That's okay. We'll take care of Kalispell for you.
Okay. I'll be glowing with PFAS over here.
I'm just glad we did this faster than Missoula did last week. We're out of here before 4 a.m.
Yeah.
Were they till 4 a.m.?
Yeah.
If they had a keg.
What?
If they had a keg.
Oh, we're doing it wrong.
Walter, we've got gummies up here behind the knives. Just kidding. The city attorney's over here going, oh my God. Anything else from council? Ms. Gabriel, Mr. Hunter?
Thank you for clarifying for the gentleman. I was thinking of the same and then I forgot about it because that was so long ago.
Mr. Hunter?
I'm good, thanks.
Okay. Enjoy your vacation. Only thing the wage thing. Mr. Graham, you talk about, let's bring up the wages, have a public hearing. But I make the smart aleck comment. What, you mean I get paid to read this 1,100 pages? And one of the things that I don't know if the public really understands is the work that goes into what we do on a regular week in and week out basis. This was a large packet. There was a lot to digest in it. But I know I commit probably 30 hours a week into doing the role of mayor. When I got elected, I was asked to fill out a W-4, and I said, why? And Doug says, because you get paid. I didn't do it because I got paid. I did it because I wanted to serve my community. And I know we all sit up here because we want to serve our community. But the more we see some of these bigger issues, and we can go back and say, when Kalispell was smaller, it's a lot easier to do some of these things. The size of the operation over the last 10 years has grown substantially. And I struggle with accepting pay for doing this just because philosophically I think this is one of the things that you do. You give back to your community, you do what you can do. But I also understand that not everybody is in the same position financially, with time, with family, etc. So that to take time away from your family and get paid a mere pittance is sometimes tough to swallow, especially when you hear how we're lining our pockets. We're getting money tonight was not an easy night. And I know we had a developer walk out of here not happy at this point. Now, they can come back, they can reapply. But this is the first time, I think, in my 10 years where I voted no on a development. And I'm a former real estate developer. And trust me, I got used to being told no. But for this council to do that is very unusual. And when staff's sitting there going, wow, they did what? I think the city is growing. We're seeing all those pressures. And I think as we look to the future, one of those things that we say, what's the smart path that we're paving? Understand that the role that we serve is becoming more critical and more important, that we can have people that can afford to put the time in and either afford personally to do it, or if that means compensation. So I think it is worth that conversation. I don't know if we come out of this and do a raise, but I also think it's important for the public to understand. We don't just walk in here at 7 o'clock on Monday and go, what's in front of us? There's a lot of work and a lot of effort. And as I can say, over the last 3 months have probably been some of the toughest. COVID was pretty darn tough. But some of the toughest was some of the decisions, some of the conversations that we've had to have. And I just want the public to understand that there is a serious commitment from the level of the council and from the level of the staff. And, I enjoy doing this, but I am now starting to hit that countdown. What is it? It's not quite midnight, right? So
6 hours to go.
I've got 18 months, 14 days. Yeah, I'm starting the countdown because it's time for some other people to step up, to serve the community. And I think it's healthy for turnover to happen at a council level and for others to step up. So I just want to bring that up because we do talk about it. And I know Mr. Graham, I know there's a lot of it that we just bear that, but understand times have changed, the city has changed. And who's going to be that next leader that steps in to fill these seats? Because God knows I don't want to be doing it for 24 years just because Well, no one else feels like they can do it because they can't afford to do it. So I just something to consider. Might be softening on that, which is odd. So with that, we're adjourned.
Okay, that's